that every time Oh yeah, the recording hasn't been started. Okay, cool. Thanks, Carlos. Well, I was just talking about myself, so it's not a big deal. So right here, and you're jumping in the recording, you're seeing me already in presentation, and the only thing that you need to know is that the beginning of a Milky Way photographer's challenge is to know that you need to know the Milky Way, when it's out, where it is, and then you need to handle all the rest of the tips that I'm going to go through in this presentation. They're going to be what to do, how to execute, where to go, when you should go, and also how to get a good composition that you like. So we're going to talk about all of that in this video, as well as I'm going to help you understand that the things that I'm showing you, the example images that I'm sharing, they come from a guy who's done this for 10 years, but they've all been done using a beginner technique. No star tracking, no stacking, just simple techniques. In fact, I was showing this image before the recording started of my favorite image. This is my first ever Milky Way. And here is my favorite Milky Way over 10 years of taking this. Still my absolute favorite. Absolutely turned out fantastic, and I just love it. I'm a sucker for panoramas, and I also love the dinosaur footprint. It's not a dinosaur, it's just a giant galactic-sized dinosaur, as if he stepped into the ground there on Canyonlands and created this canyon below the cliff. So we're up on a high cliff looking down to other terrain that has another cliff that goes even further down. It's a really cool area, and it makes for an awesome foreground. And that plus a Milky Way panorama is just gold. And so it's my favorite image of all time. And I've taken this image with no tracking, no stacking, and no real high level techniques in post processing. I edited it in Lightroom, no Photoshop. The only time I pulled up Photoshop was to blend my foreground and my sky. Once I got that sky and foreground working together, then the image was complete. And that required Photoshop to handle the merge of the two layers. That's it. I didn't do anything else. I didn't do noise reduction. I didn't do anything. And so if you're a beginner to this, complete beginner, you could accomplish this image with knowing bare minimum skills. And so the emphasis is that Milky Way photography is a simple skill that you can do really well at, and I'm encouraging everyone to try it out. So now we're talking about the cosmos and how the Milky Way core is visible every stinking day. It's just sometimes that timing is during the day. And if that timing of the Milky Way core above the horizon has the sun, you just don't see it. And the only time in the whole Earth, well, I shouldn't say the whole Earth because I bet there's somewhere in Antarctica that if I looked, you just never see the core, but I haven't double checked it and found anything else. When I have checked, it seems like it always sees the core. So I need to double check again on all the parts of Antarctica or all the parts of the North Pole. But when it comes to Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere populated areas, we see the Milky Way core every single month except December. And then you have to go, okay, so if I can see the core, what makes certain months better than other months? Why do we have this season? And the season is simply based on length of time that you're seeing the Milky Way core. If you went out in February to see the Milky Way core, you'd only see it for like an hour before sunrise. But if you go out in June, it starts immediately at sunset and goes until sunrise. You see it all night long. And June, July, August, September, most of it, you have all those long nights where you can go out any hour and see the Milky Way core. So then it comes down to, okay, I know I can see the Milky Way, but there's another factor you have to consider if you want the Milky Way to be good. And those months that are best, I just talked about them. But the situation, I should emphasize these real quick. February through June for us Northern Hemisphere people is panorama months, just panorama season, nail your panoramas. Then when you go out in July through September, you really just have a vertical tilted to a vertical, perfectly vertical to a tilting to the right. That's your Milky Way shape. That's the only shape you get, and it's great still. I prefer the panorama months myself. Sometimes I take off July entirely because it's like it's really hot, and also I don't want a vertical Milky Way necessarily right now. I'm going to wait until I'm eager to come back again. But February through June, oh, it's prime. It's prime months, panorama season. Because even if I want a composition of just the Milky Way doing this and not the full arch, I can enjoy just pointing it towards the core and getting a composition like that. And it's brilliant. It's cool because the balance of the composition at a diagonal goes across the negative space of the starry sky versus the positive space of the foreground, and it balances easy. But when it's totally vertical, now you got some challenges where you need to get some other subjects in the foreground that break the plane, go into the horizon, and take up some of that negative space. Otherwise, you just have, 70% of the sky is nothing but stars, and then 30% is Milky Way, which is cool still. I'll show you some pictures and examples of that. And You know what? I'll show you right now because I actually just skipped that when I was talking about me. So I'm going to tell you my favorite images of all time. Here is a perfect example of an image that is vertical and great still. This one right here is from an area. I'll, I won't reveal this area because there's a book that I created for those who follow me. It's a PDF that they bought it from me, and it has this location specifically among some other locations I'm going to share here in a sec that are specifically mentioned there. So I won't give that away since they were kind enough to buy the book. But I do have a hint that I'll say it's in southern Utah, and this is a cool spire. And this spire is a great way to take care of a Milky Way in that vertical season where it's all vertical and it's taking up all that space. I have a tighter shot. I'm not showing a lot of the height of here, but I'm taking care of a lot of space with Milky Way interest and then a tall spire that takes up the negative space. Another favorite image, this is Southern Hemisphere Milky Way. This is what you see in the Southern Hemisphere. If you see a panorama, this is going up. The core is not on the far right like we typically see it in the Northern Hemisphere. It's in the dead center. And it's coming up where technically it's flipped to our eyes. We usually see this star, which is part of my favorite new tip. Remember my favorite tip, the star. If you come away with nothing else learned, remember what the star's name is because it's important. This right here. And so this core is what we'd see the star above it is now below it. And we don't even usually see this part of the core. We don't see this in the Northern Hemisphere or any of this band. So we see some of it, but we don't see typically this section, and we don't see the large and small Magellanic Cloud. So this is really cool. I love getting there in Southern Hemisphere, seeing in New Zealand. And there's also aurora popping off, which is why all the pinks. I didn't paint the pinks in. I'm kind of annoyed at the pinks, to be honest, but it's a blast of aurora that's happening over here that's causing some flaring of red and pink. There's a term for it. It's not a Steve or anything, but there's something else that causes the pink to be in the sky, closer to you. And that just happened to be hard that night, really going hard. And then another vertical image. Well, this is not a vertical one, but it's a vertical composition with the Milky Way that's coming across it. This is my third favorite image of all time. This one is so cool, and so much had to go in to make it work. And the reason why I say that is because the conditions of this sand dune typically is just trodden with footprints everywhere. People are disgustingly ruining this dune. And it just happened that day that it rained and snowed a little bit and rained hard and the wind was hard and no one went out to the dune, or at least those that had been earlier in the day before all the rain. All the evidence of those footprints were washed away. And so when those got washed away, when myself and Kathy showed up that night, we had a pristine dune to ourselves. And it was perfect timing. I mean, you can't get this if you plan it. You just got to hope for your luck. And we got lucky. So it turned out really well. And just like my other image, I'm going to show here, I went a little Instagram heavy. I'm like, I'm going to do the whole pose. Woo! And I didn't want to, but I wanted to give the scale of the cave opening. So I included myself in there. If I could have, I would have kept my tripod with my cameras on it, though. I would have had it up there and looked like I'm just taking the picture from there. But instead, it became, praise the core, look at the core. And I just I'm okay with it. But it sure looks cool seeing the scale, seeing the vertical image. Another vertical image that I love is this one, where the Milky Way is in early season. This is late July. So it's got that tilt. And it's going, and the composition requires that taller subject to be in the shot to keep it looking nice. So those are some examples. We'll get some more as we go through here. But as you're going through July through September, those are the kind of vertical compositions you'll be planning on. And then it's like desperation. Want to do some Milky Way still months, October and November. They are tilted and vertical. October still shows vertical, but it's mostly tilting that night. And then in November, it's already tilted a little bit, and it tilts the rest of the way till it sets. And so this is the Milky Way throughout the year. Panorama for Northern Hemisphere is February through June. Southern Hemisphere, they have panorama all the time. It's almost never a panorama season for them. They're friggin' lucky. And then July through September's are vertical and kind of tilted, but also kind of a windshield wiper. Gives you both 45 to this. You get all sorts of options there. But then October and November, it is just vertical and tilted. That's all you're getting, and you're only getting less than 2 hours of it. And in November, you're getting less than 30 minutes of it. Now, what does of it mean? We'll talk about that here later, but what do they mean by it's set? The Milky Way core has set, and we'll get specific on that. So the time of night. When you're thinking about these months, the early months, it's the end of the night, almost to morning. So like right now through April, you're going in the early hours of the morning before sunrise. Then, if you go in the summer months, it's all night long. Starting in June through September, you've got all night long Milky Way. Then, the later months, it's really just at the beginning of the night when it just barely got dark, and then it sets before the night is over. So, when people think of the Milky Way season, they're thinking of those summer months. They're like, ah, God, it's the best time to go. It is technically, since every hour is good, but it takes a real masochist to be out there for every hour. You don't want to be out there for every hour. You got to get some sleep somewhere. So if you just want to have an easygoing time where you go out early, like myself and Carlos did in October, we have a Milky Way visible right away. And before we start to get tired, the Milky Way set anyway, and we can just go back and sleep. It's really fantastic to go in the fall for that benefit alone, is that the Milky Way core is done by midnight anyway, and you can get some real sleep. So let's talk about that. What is the Milky Way core? Like where exactly is that core? Well, here it is. Sagittarius A asterisk. That is the Milky Way core. And the Milky Way core is a radio signal at the center of our galaxy that is referencing the black hole that makes up the center of our galaxy. And so, where is it? If you look at the Sagittarius constellation, there's this tea kettle shape, and off of the tip of the spout, it goes up. And so, here's Sagittarius A asterisk off to the right of it. So, it's Sagittarius A star, and it's close to that. And since it's a radio signal, they say Sagittarius A asterisk, and that is the center. So, if you look at my phone and imagine, you guys can't see much, but imagine, let's say, I'll put two fingers hanging off on the side. So you can see these two fingers right here. As I'm going out of the camera's frame, when I put those two fingers below the edge, that's set. My phone is still visible. Half of my phone is visible. But when those two fingers are there, oh, the Milky Way has set. That's what they say. But you can see that all of this part of my phone is still visible. It's absolutely visible. So there's Milky Way core that is visible still, even when it's technically set, because everything, all the apps goes off of when Sagittarius A asterisk hits 0 degrees and goes below horizon. So then we go on and know more about the Milky Way. Let's see, are there any other constellations that are going to help you mark where the core is? So, for instance, in that early image I showed you, where I technically had a picture of the Milky Way core but didn't know it, if I had known this, I would have realized it. Right there is that image. And you can see, I'm on that right side of the constellation that marks the core. What is that? It's the Scorpius constellation. This right here is the Scorpius constellation, and I was capturing it in my picture, but I wasn't realizing and recognizing that, hey, here's the core right here, and then here is what I was looking at. Look at this star right here. That's Antares, and this is the head of the Scorpius constellation, which means the core was just right about here. So let's continue on. Look at the bookends of our core. We have on the right Antares and Scorpius, and on the left we have Sagittarius, that constellation. So if you can see the scorpion or the tea kettle, you know that the Milky Way core is in the dead center of that, or pretty close. I mean, you can see how it's hugging more over here to Sagittarius than it is to Scorpius, because here's the core, and Sagittarius is off to the right a little bit, but it's between those, or Scorpius is off to the right a little bit. It's between those. So then my favorite tip, my favorite actual tip. Let me grab a sip of my water real quick. I want you to remember this because it's so useful for when you don't know where the Milky Way is gonna be, or you don't know where the Milky Way is. You look in the night sky to a location you've never been before, you're kind of not sure where north is really. You're like, what? Look for this. And it is called the Rho Ophiuchi complex. The Rho Ophiuchi complex is centered around Antares. See, here's the Antares star, and it's really all of this. And off of the main core is this long dust lane that reaches up and goes into this Rho Ophiuchi complex. As you can see in this picture, it's quite gorgeous. If you had a tracker and you also took many long exposures to bring the colors out and you could track long time, you could see this very clearly. You'll see it in my images going forward where you'll see it clearly-ish, but it's just kind of white and a little bit different colors, but nothing like this where it's so colorful. So if you had a long lens and you had a tracker, you could really have some fun with the Rho Ophiuchi complex. So the Rho Ophiuchi complex, you get out to this location, you look on the horizon, where's the Milky Way going to come? This is the time of season for us right now. Before we go out and Milky Way core is already up in the sky. Well, here I am. I'm at this location. I really love how I can see so many stars, but where do I need to point my camera? I want to do a time lapse, but where do I point my camera to make sure I'm seeing the Milky Way core when it comes up? And that is where you got to look for the one star Antares and those three dots coming off of it. You can see the brightness of these three stars. It's kind of a rake shape, a little rake. You got Antares and the spikes, the tines of a rake. And that is the rake you're looking for, or the chicken foot. It's like, where's the chicken foot in the sky? Oh, there's one. Now, there is a false decoy chicken foot, like an Ophiuchus constellation or like a box constellation off to the right that looks like it is. And you're like, oh, that must be it. And like, no, no. As it gets higher, you realize it's not it. It's similar, but it's not. The real one has a bright star that is slightly visibly yellow, and you see the three stars really brightly above it in that rake shape. And this is key to help you know where the Milky Way is going to be because of this. Look at this. If I draw a circle right around the Rho Ophiuchi complex and the three stars of that rake, what happens in exactly an hour and a couple minutes? The Milky Way core scoots into that position. Watch this. So up here in the high sky, I put a circle around this, and in an hour, that's where the Milky Way core moves into. So this is a guide for where the Milky Way is going to be in an hour. So if you got a Milky Way core on the horizon that you can't see yet, but you're wondering where is it going to come up, and you have spires of interest, you could literally football goalpost the star Antares in between those spires and go, okay, if I start a time lapse right now, in an hour, the Milky Way core will be right there. And I won't miss that rising Milky Way core, or I won't accidentally frame my time lapse where I'm cutting off the Milky Way come up. I'll frame it inside my frame and I'll see all the action, and I won't cut it off on this side either where it rises and then comes off my frame immediately. You can put that box of your framing exactly where you want it to be to have space to see the Milky Way rise, because you watch the Milky Way, or you watch the Rho Ophiuchi and that Antares star guide you. So it's my favorite tip. I always remind people when we're out there waiting for the Milky Way to get clear from clouds, clear from light pollution, clear from the light of the twilight periods. And I'm like, hey, the Rho Ophiuchi, where's the Rho Ophiuchi? I think I asked Carlos like 7 times, where's the Rho Ophiuchi, Carlos? You remember? And so I'd help them remember where the Rho Ophiuchi is and that. So let me show you a time lapse from Bistae to understand how it looks as it's rising. So here we go. In Bistae, we have these cracked eggs. You hike out for 2 miles to get there, and then you kind of want to wait and make sure that everything is a good composition, but you don't know if you got the right egg and you're pointed the right direction, because you get out there not too late. You start hiking around midnight, get there around 1, and you're still there until 3:30. It's not even a good time for the Milky Way core until 3:30 in the morning. It's miserable in April when you do this, but it's the better time to go. So here is our Rho Ophiuchi. You can see in my time lapse how you can tell it's obviously there with some dust lanes coming off of it. There's no color. It's a high ISO exposure. It is not going to show off the color, and it's very short shutter. But you can see the 3 stars of the rake popping off. Well, let's see at the beginning of the time lapse here in a sec. Wait for a second, and right here. So here is where it was and started, and as the time lapse moves, you can see how that Milky Way core just moves right into that position. So if I liked having that off to the right of the center of this rock, then I'm set up for it to happen. And then as I just wait the time lapse, I just keep going until the Milky Way gets in the position. So in a situation like this where you have a foreground that you're probably going to do a focus stack and a long exposure of the foreground and then capture the night sky like this time lapse and wait for the Milky Way to get into position, I don't recommend sitting there and just kind of hoping, oh, 2:14, click a picture. 2:25, take a picture. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend just doing a time lapse if you can. Most cameras can do it now built in. And you just do a time lapse, and it's just easy mode. You just take the pictures with the settings that you would have captured the Milky Way at anyway, and then it's just rattling off shot after shot after shot during the entire window. And I can choose later, oh, I like it when it's this low to the ground, or I liked it when it was more high in the sky. And that's the image I want to use for my final composition. So this time lapse really helps when you're dealing with clouds, and when you have plenty of time to wait and see if the Milky Way gets in a position that you like. And then I would just capture the time lapse, because one thing is that you can come away with a video and enjoy that. You can come away with a star stack if you want to do a stack. You can do star trails if you wanted from the image that you captured. And then the final thing is you can use any one of those images to actually be your final composition sky shot. So that's terrific. I just recommend that when you capture a foreground in a sky that you don't move the camera. Keep that tripod still and steady and capture the foreground and then don't move anything and let the sky shot happen when it happens. And that way, when you're blending those together, the foreground hasn't moved so much that when you're trying to blend the foreground from the sky, that you don't have these weird overlaps. You'll have a precise twin of the foreground, just a different exposure of it, and you can choose the sky out and keep the foreground that you want, and you won't have any hard work in post-processing. That's a difficult question to explain more clearly later, but just know that when you're capturing a sky and a foreground at different times, keep your tripod totally still and don't move it a little, and you'll have a much easier time in post. You'll save yourself a lot of hours. All right, let's get out of this time lapse and come back. So now we know where the cosmos are. We know where the Milky Way core is going to be, and we know that we need to capture it during a certain time, depending on the time of year. But every night can have a different window of opportunity for Milky Way core thanks to the enemy, the ultimate enemy, the moon. Now, the clouds are kind of the bigger enemy because they can hurt you anytime. But that moon, man, that really wrecks your shot. If the moon's up even a little, it will be so bright that it changes your composition. It'll change the way your sky looks. It'll change your execution of the exposure of the core. You'll see less of it. And so you will be glad to have no moon. Now, we talked on the email. I sent you a PDF that shows the moon window of opportunity. Let's go into that real quick. So here were the 10 things you must do before Milky Way. Know the moon, know the Milky Way. I've talked about that so far, and we're going to continue through these points as we go through today's lesson. So let's go ahead and come out of this and go, click on that. And let's go over to the moon window of opportunities tip sheet. So if you have that, feel free to pull it up to remind you this, because this is just to teach you a couple elements that I want to go over. First off, what is full darkness versus twilight period? I want to emphasize that every night starts with a daylight transition to sunset. And then after the sun has fully set, you'll have civil twilight, nautical twilight, astronomical twilight, and then full darkness. And it's during that full darkness period that you should capture your Milky Way shot. If you capture it during any of these twilights, it might be too faded to see much of the detail of the core. Astronomical twilight is an option where you can capture kind of a bluer, lighter Milky Way core. And people who do blue hour blends will use astronomical twilight Milky Way sometimes to make their post-processing easier. But me, I'm an elitist. I just want to have the perfect darkest Milky Way, and I capture only during the full darkness period. So every night you have this transition from daylight to sunset to twilight periods to full darkness. As the sun goes below a certain degree mark, when it gets to like 4 degrees, it's civil twilight. Below 4 degrees, it's nautical twilight, and below another degree marker, it's astro technically. And then it is fully down below where on that side of the earth where you're sitting and standing, that's so dark in the night sky, you have none of the bleed of light coming from the sun reaching around the Earth's globe and actually lighting up the sky a little bit. None of it's there anymore. It's got full darkness, and that's during the time that you want to capture. So then you probably think, okay, Aaron, I know when to go out without the moon. It's the new moon night. Everyone knows it's the new moon night because, I mean, you look at this graphic right here, new moon night has zero moon throughout the entire night. It absolutely is the best. It's also the best time to find a bunch of other people there at the spot you want to go and who are going to be in your way. So if you want to go another night, what nights are good? Well, one thing that's kind of misunderstood and not learned until you go out and do it is that the nights that are bad for Milky Way, thanks to the moon, number in the 3 to 5 nights. That's it. Every month you have 3 to 5 nights that are bad because of the moon. The rest of the nights are terrific because they give you a window of opportunity. Now, this is where knowing the Milky Way season comes into play. So if you remember at all what I just told you about the spring, when is the Milky Way core up in the spring? At the very end of the night, just before the sunrise. So end of the night before sunrise, no moon, no moon, no moon. Okay, full moon it blocks. But a waxing gibbous moon is a massive moon. And yeah, anytime during that time being above the horizon, it would be a bad shot. It'd be so bright. You'd look like it was daylight on the foreground. But when this finally sets in the morning before it becomes fully sunrise, there's a window where it's fully dark. The moon has set, and the sunrise hasn't started, and you still have full darkness for at least an hour, maybe two, maybe just 30 minutes. And during that time is when you can still capture a Milky Way. So while people are fighting for Mesa Arch on the new moon night, you go on a waxing gibbous morning before, no one's there. And also, you can get set up for the Milky Way. No one will be there. Capture your Milky Way and just stay an extra hour, and you're set up for Mesa Arch sunrise. So, this is good to know that you have a window of opportunity here, even though the full moon is coming in a day or two. So, this is fantastic time to go. Well, if you're there in a fall, and you want to go during the fall, and it's only going to happen at the beginning of night, the Milky Way core is up and then sets. It sets by midnight. This window, maybe. This moon, absolutely not. And this moon, absolutely not. And this moon, absolutely not. So the first quarter moon, waxing gibbous moon, full moon, they're going to block off your Milky Way window of opportunity. But the waning gibbous, just a couple nights after full moon. So say Wednesday was full moon. By Friday, you're going to have a window where the moon just takes a little more time to rise. It doesn't rise right away at night. And you're going to have a window of opportunity to capture the Milky Way before the moon rises on you. So you can go out right away. And no one's going out at waxing gibbous or waning gibbous times. They're thinking, oh, the moon's up. But it's not 100% of the night. So then the last quarter moon is good for a fall Milky Way, and the waning crescent moon is fantastic for a fall Milky Way. If you have June and you're thinking, I can go, other than the full moon night, you could go any night. You just have to know what time of the night it's going to be. Oh, the Milky Way core is going to be really high in the sky because by the time I see it in the latter half of the night, it's going to be having risen a long ways. Or, hey, it's going to be a waning crescent moon. The moon's totally out of my way for hours. I can capture that rising Milky Way core on the horizon. I can see it go vertical. I can get panoramas. I have all sorts of time. So use this tip sheet to remind you about those windows of opportunity, and then you'll have to check precisely on when you should go. And to emphasize that, let me come back over here. This is the Moonwoo PDF, but there's also the calendar feature in Planet. So here's where I want you guys to actually grab your Planet apps out. So go to your phone and let's go to the Planet app. And let me just pull up my phone here. And I think I'll leave this in the background as long as you guys don't tell me, like Carlos, tell me if that's distracting, seeing the text on the right and left of that. But here's my phone. And the Planet app has a feature. So if you're thinking about that moon window of opportunity, you're probably not seeing me very large, but if you are seeing me somewhere, look at where you see me. I want to show you what a massive nerd I am. This is an example of being a massive nerd about this kind of thing. This is the calendar for 2021. And I went through all the days of 2021 and I marked them with blue squares. I separated those days out, and you won't see it very clearly here, but there's 4 squares per night. And if there's white, then it's a bad time to go. If it's blue, dark blue, then it's a good time to go. So I knew that October 21st on the 10th, I don't want to go in the first quarter of the night, but the last 3 quarters of the night, there is a good opportunity. Now, what I did here is I matched this up with Milky Way location in the sky as well as the moon. Well, actually, yeah, October's fine. October's fine because you can see in November, the only weeks that are actually worthwhile in this year was the first week and the second week. The rest of the weeks, there's just not good because the moon gets the Milky Way set so fast. So I went through and I figured all of it out, and then I made this calendar and I was helping people with it. And I thought, I'm going to do this every year. I called it the Milky Way Photography Almanac. And it was kind of a guide to help people know here's a good night to go. Instead of thinking new moon only, look at all the many nights. I mean, you look at May, and there's only these nights 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, where all hours are bad. But the rest had a window of opportunity, right? Well, turns out the Planet Pro app created by Wenjie. Wenjie created an awesome app. Ooh, I bumped my desk hard. Nothing fell. Okay. The app came with the almanac. It's actually included. He did it too. He's thought of this the same way. Maybe he saw my almanac. Maybe he thought of it on his own. But Wenjie created this and included it in his app. And so I never created it again. I never created the almanac any year after 2021 because this is an easy way to do it. So now go into the app with me. And the only thing that you need to do is choose a location that you might do Milky Way photography. If you don't have one, just use the one that it's probably set for your home. But the habit you need to get into when you use Planet is the first things first is to go up here, go to the menu system, and you need to do a new plan. This button right here with the paper and the folded icon means new plan. Do that first every time. It's really a good habit to get into because when you close the app and come back in, it'll just show you where you were last. So if you change to another location, it'll change always, and you'll never have that information you needed. So I always save. You can see I have 126 plans. There's 126 different times and locations that I've set up that I wanted to go for a Milky Way on my phone. On my iPad, I have even more. So this is good to have the plans. That way you can always come back to them, and I'll show you that here. So I'm going to do a new plan. I'm going to hit that new button. And in your case, you can do all of this. You can do none of it. I'm not going to release the map. I'm going to not center the map at my current location, but I will release the, I'm not going to release the camera either. I want everything to stay here. Oh, no, release the camera. Camera location is what it's talking about, and you'll see that in a sec. So to release the camera, it'll reset the time to now and it'll reset the ephemeris, which is meaning, all the time set to now, what's happening, what's the night sky going to do, but it's not going to center the map at my current location. So I'm going to say a new plan now, having chosen that. So it should keep me in Goblin Valley, but my plan 17 is now January 15th, 2026 at 6:57 p.m. So then I go up. Oh, I wanted to click on that with my mouse. Let me go up here at the top. The best second habit you can do is to name your plan. Obviously, I have 16 plans I haven't named. So I've lost on my habit plan. I have my habit hopes on 16 of those plans. But now I'm going to do Chicago Club and Chub Club and do Clib. I did it again. Club and do let's just talk about the moon because I'll show you a really cool thing about the moon. So Chicago Club Moon. And now on Goblin Valley, a plan called Chicago Club Moon, I'm set to go. Well, what does Planet do? What is it trying to do? If you're seeing something close to what I'm seeing, then you have the right map layers set up. I like the map layers to be Google Satellite, but I like it to be, there's not really an option for hybrid here. So I'm just going to do Google Satellite. Boom. Google Satellite is great for me because I can recognize the terrain and also plan around the terrain that I want to capture. Goblin Valley, for instance, I can see where the goblins are versus the parking lot. I like that. In the other map, I can see the parking lot, but I won't know where all the goblins are. So here is nice. I like satellite view. The other thing you need to do is decide where you want your camera to be. So without knowing a particular goblin that we want to feature, let's just go down in here and say, I'm going to have my camera right here. And so I'm going to line up my camera in that empty space, and I'm going to hit the plus sign. And I hope you're able to do this with me fast enough. Plus sign, and I'm going to choose camera location. Camera location, boom. So now the app knows where my camera's in the world. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you information for that location. It already kind of updated sunrise and moonrise based off of that location, but it didn't know a precise minute maybe for changes as it goes, across those 100 yards that you could be. So here is my camera. Let me set my location for where I'm looking. Your scene location. I'm going to say I'm looking at this hoodoo. You can see in the shadow on the satellite, that's obviously a taller hoodoo. It's quite a long shadow, and there's other ones that are short shadows, so short hoodoos. But this goblin is tall. This one's tall. That's pretty dang tall. This one is a good one. I'm going to make that my subject. So now I've moved. See how the center of the map, when you move it around, just has a circle? I'm going to put underneath my circle that hoodoo right there. I'm going to hit the plus sign again, and instead of choosing camera location, I'm going to choose scene location. Boom. So now we have a scene location and camera location. Hopefully you've done that with me for your first time. We will do this again tonight, okay? But just want you to do that with me. But from here on, eyes up on the presentation. Don't play with your app unless you really want to. I'm going to go through faster pace now. So here we are. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, actually, no, I take that back. I haven't showed you the calendar yet. We set a location. We set a time. Let's look at the calendar. You can hold your phone again. Go up to the menu system that we started at, the hamburger menu system up here, the 3 lines, and you're going to go down and click on calendar. Calendar is fantastic. If you buy this app for nothing else, buy it for the calendar feature. It's worth the $10 or $5 that it is, depending on what you add. It's worth it for the calendar alone. I promise you. So I'm clicking on calendar, and based off of the location of my red pin, where I'm currently located, it's giving me calendar information. Now it's giving me important dates for the month. Many different things. I don't look at these that much. I don't remember. That thing that's in perigee and apogee between the moon being closest and being furthest. Here's a meteor shower night. Here's a moon phase, stuff like that. But what's important for us Milky Way photographers is this third icon in or fourth icon in. That guy right there looks like a hairy gumball. That right there is the Milky Way and the Milky Way core. And what's important about this calendar is if you tap it again, it'll pop up what everything means. It's like, hey, this is the Milky Way center calendar. Milky Way core never rises or always has moon. No green dot. Green dot. You can't zoom in, can you? You can't see it. So only on your phone will you be able to see it even closer. But hopefully it's readable enough through the zoom. Right here is one green dot, and it says less than 2 hours of Milky Way core without moon. So Aaron's almanac, the precise window of opportunity, the moon window of opportunity. No moon, but core is up above the horizon. So the two important equations you want to get into is where's the moon and where's the core is answered in this calendar for you. From this location, it had 3 weeks of nothing. But then on the 18th, starting the year off, there's actually a moment where the Milky Way core is above the horizon. It's before the twilight periods, and there's no moon. And it's less than 2 hours. Entire month, last 2 weeks of the month, it's less than 2 hours. In fact, here the moon becomes a new moon, a full moon, I guess. So there's no opportunity for the 29th, 30th, and 31st. But if you go into February, you can see, okay, after the new moon, after the full moon, let me go back to my moon window sheet. So here's the full moon. What happens after the full moon? Well, right after the full moon, there's a gap in the beginning of the night, but then it rises. And it takes longer to rise every night. So before the full moon, it takes longer to it sets on you, but then after the full moon, it rises on you later. So here we had moon, set, went away, moon, but set, went away, moon, it set, went away. Now it's like the moon all night. And then here it's the moon is not showing up. Oh, here it is. Moon is up now. Not showing up for quite a while. Oh, now the moon's up. And then the moon's gone for most of the night, and then it shows up. These 3 phases of the moon after the full moon are exactly overlapping a time like February, a time like this. So it makes sense that after January 29th, 30th, and 31st, when we had those bad nights to go, the bad nights continued for a long stretch because the Milky Way core was always up with the moon. That's always when it happened. But then it started getting good again on the 12th. And hey, wow, okay. When is the new moon in February 2026? Let's click on the moon calendar down here. And that says that the new moon night's the 17th. Okay, the best night of February must be the 17th. That's absolutely it, right? We go to our Milky Way Pro calendar here, the hairy gumball, and the 17th night is less than 2 hours, and the 23rd and the 24th is more than 2 hours. So the new moon night in February is bad compared to the 23rd and 24th. It's actually worse. It has fewer hours that you can actually see the Milky Way core without a moon. So it's not always true that the new moon night is always great. The new moon night never has a moon. That's always true. But it's not always the greatest night of that month to go out. So in this case, it's a perfect example of how in February and the 23rd and 24th, those are better nights to be out than any other night in all of February 2026. So if any of you are thinking, ooh, I'd like to get a panorama shot of a low, almost parallel with the horizon, February Milky Way. I'd like to do that, Aaron. When should I go? Well, if you're anywhere on the longitude line of Goblin Valley, you're going to want to go on the 23rd and the 24th, and the rest of the nights they're give or take. So that is what is so powerful about the calendar part of Planet, which is why absolutely worth getting this app if you don't already have it. Recommend it to all you Milky Way nerds out there.
Yeah, and Aaron, and the cool thing is that it's wherever you are, it shows you exactly what the information is, which changes because, yeah, I set it to here in Lake Forest, and of course I only have one dot for those where you
right?
have two dots because we're 1,000 miles away from you. You know,
Exactly. So
so
let me show you everybody like what he's talking about. So right here, the magnifying glass on the top right lets you search locations. So say I were to type in, let's just say the St. Louis Arc, the Arch, and search that real quick. Let's see if I can even get it by that name. Gateway Arch. Perfect. Okay, so here's the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. And let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, yep, I can see the arch's shadow right here. So I know that this metal part is the arch. And you know what? Where it's putting me is not where I want my camera. So I'm going to hit the trash. Okay. So I don't want my camera there. I'm going to stand by this fountain and I'm going to put my camera down there. So camera location at the fountain, scene location. Let's look at the arch. Let's just put it kind of under the arch. Plus sign, hit scene location. So now what he's talking about is I've set my camera location, which is actually the blue pin. Red pin on the PhotoPills app is where you're located at, and where you're located at in the Planet Pill is a blue pin. But the red pin's where you're looking. So if my blue pin changed, I go back to the calendar and I go to the calendar and see what's going on in January. Well, kind of similar in January, but wait a sec. That's still the same timing. So what were you seeing, Carlos, that was so different?
I only see one dot on in February here in the Chicago area on the
Okay.
23rd,
I went
24th.
too far south with St. Louis, I guess, huh? If I had gone
Yeah,
up north to Chicago, it would have shown
yeah,
me only
yeah,
one dot.
yeah. You're still in the same latitude, similar latitude.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then, because I want to emphasize to you all how to use this app, I'm going to do it one more time so you can see how I did this. I went St. Louis Arch because I used to live there. But let's go for Sears Tower and also show you a cool feature of this app that you have to pay extra for. But here's Sears Tower. I'm going to do a search for it. And do you mean Willis Tower?
Yeah, you
Do
do.
I? Okay. I'm like, do I? So there's Willis Tower. It's the location I want to look at. So I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to hit this button here and say scene location. Yeah, that's the scene location, but I maybe don't want to put my camera there. Let's pretend like you guys, I know the building engineer of this particular building, and I'm going to stand on the roof of this building. Somehow I got access to it. I'm going to set my current location there. So my camera location is there. Now, it's implying that I'm standing on the ground level, not on the top of the building. So there's a step here that would have to be involved to account for being up higher on the y axis. But here we are in Chicago. Now I go to my calendar feature and look at boom. There it is. That's what he was seeing, and maybe many of you are seeing. February up at that latitude, you are dealing with none of the nights in February have more than 2 hours of moon without Milky Way. The good news is that this location has 0 hours without light pollution. So you're not going to be there very often for the Milky Way core. But you could do it for something else that's really cool. And I'll give you guys a preview of that right now. So I've set my location and I set my subject. If I do my favorite feature in Planet, absolute favorite. I'll emphasize this again later, but absolute favorite is this square right here. Hit this square. If you were to ask me, Aaron, why do you have Planet and PhotoPills? Don't they do the same thing? I'm going to show you tonight how in PhotoPills is where I start. It's quick, easy, slightly intuitive, a little bit more intuitive than Planet Pro for a beginner to understand how to make sure I look at a location and say, does this location work for the Milky Way? Does this location work for the moon? I basically start my first answer. Should I go there? And when should I go there? Oh, should I go there? Yeah, absolutely. The Milky Way is visible from here. Okay, when should I go there? Oh, during this window of time. Okay, cool. I've solved that. I know that location works for me. Photo pills, thank you. Then when I transition, when I'm ready to transition from, all right, I've decided February 8th of 2027, I'm going to go there for the moon. It's going to be an awesome full moon. I'm going to go there. I've decided I want to do it because the photo pills help. Now I'm like, you know what? Where do I want to put my tripod? And I could plan the exact position of my tripod based on what Planet will give me that I don't get in PhotoPills yet. They say they're going to add it. They should, because that's the big reason why you need both still. And if PhotoPills adds it, maybe some people will be just PhotoPills, but I am both because of this. I start my planning with PhotoPills for ease of should I go and when, and then I take my information into Planet and say, where should my tripod be and how will my composition look? And let me show you that. How will my composition look? Well, here we go. I've set up a location for my camera and I've set up a location for my scene. So this knows which direction I'm looking. In fact, if I click on this tiny little caret button that my fat little Italian fingers can't reach for sometimes, I nailed it. You can change this to, instead of being latitude, longitude, and elevation, I can have it be focal length. And when I do that, now I can define my lens. I'm gonna go there with a 70 to 200. I'm gonna be all the way out at 200. Okay. Well, you know what? For first, let's just start off at a 75 so that I can see more. We'll put towards looking directly at my subject. Here's a green spray line or like wedge shape that is indicating my focal length and how much it's going to keep in view, which is nice because then I can go, oh, yeah, that's how much it's showing. But what's even better are two things I'm about to show you. First, I'm going to show you this feature right here that I absolutely love. And the second thing is a feature that I'm paying for every year. I just pay one, like I think I pay like $2 extra, maybe $3 for a whole year access to 3D models. When you see all these little blue squares, those are buildings that have a 3D model. So the Chicago skyline is quite populated. They have done a lot of work getting the 3D models for them in. And I'm going to show you this. You're going to freaking love this. So then I'm going to go into this square, and underneath the square, there's a lot of options. I'm going to do Viewfinder VR. I'm going to hit it. Boom. I'm going to download information. Like I told you, the Y position is all messed up. It's all on the ground level, which is what I'm seeing so far before the download's completed, is that I'm just looking into buildings. I can't really see the Sears Tower. It's impossible to recognize where I'm at. So it's like, okay, let me do something here. I'm gonna go into my blue pin. I've tapped on it, and now I can do something. Here's a height change. I'm gonna go, and this is where if you were following me, you can go ahead and just watch me. Just watch me. I'm gonna go too fast for a little bit here. I'm not 5 feet tall anymore. I'm 5'4". I'm not a very tall guy. I'm not 5 foot anymore. I'm gonna be what's a good height? I should say Chicagoites, like Chicagoans. Or should I say
250,
building?
250 feet, 300
That's
feet.
like the top of the building, maybe 250 feet high.
Yeah.
All right, let's do 250. So 250 is my height now. So now the non-default options are used, it emphasizes. Well, here's go back into the VR mode. And now at this position at 250 feet high, that's what I'd be looking at. Let me change my orientation up here from landscape to vertical. And then also, instead of being at 75, I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to see wide. So if I was 250 feet tall, well, that's not even tall enough. So let's go ahead and double that. Let's even say 600 feet. I'm going to tap on that blue square again, change the height. I'm going to say I am 650 feet up in the sky. Really get above that building, I'm hoping. And so now I'm going to look at that view in the viewfinder. Boom. Yes. Okay. So now imagine I'm literally like a drone over this building. They had the 3D model of it. That's roughly what I was hoping to be was on top of that. And I'm looking over at the Sears Willis Tower. And here is my view. And as of January 15th, 2026 at 8:13 p.m., I guess your time is 8:13 p.m., my time 7:13. This is what the sky looks like. You can see that not only is the sky interesting, but the Barnard's Loop of the Orion constellation is right on top of the Sears Tower right now. So if you were to somehow have a, don't cause this yourself, but if you had a blackout and there's no power running and you could take pictures with that light pollution, you'd be seeing an awesome constellation of Orion with the Orion Nebula. You'd be seeing the Witch's Head Nebula. You'd be seeing the Horsehead Nebula, the Barnard's Loop right there, that half semicircle, and the Rose. Actually, that's a different one. But over here is the Rosette Nebula. You'd be seeing all of those bright subjects here and enjoying a really cool view over the Sears Tower right now. So let me give you a preview of something awesome. This is something that if you're a moon photographer, you'll love this. So it's like, okay, cool. I've decided on a location. I love the Sears Tower, but now I'm wondering when, if ever, is the moon right in here? Let me change this to my 200 millimeter lens. I'm going to go zoom in to 200. And I've got these spires now that are just in between my shot. It's like, maybe that's a little too tight. I'm going to pinch zoom and go back, and I'm going to see you know what? I want to see enough of the Sears Tower so it's recognizable, but I kind of want to put it in the third and have some room in there. So I'm going to make my composition look like this. And am I getting other buildings? No, not according to this. And so I think that's a good shot. So this is how I'm fine tuning my actual composition. Now I'm saying it's saying 73 millimeters. Like, well, okay, let's go to my 75. I'll just be wide or 70 to 200. So I'll go 70. I'll take it to my 70, go flat on my zoom so I don't have to think about it. And this is how much sky and how much sheer Sears Tower would look from this exact position, too. This is the angle the building would be at, too. It's really cool. So now I'm thinking, when is the moon like right here? Is the moon ever right there? And that's when you come in to play with these other buttons on Planet. These other buttons, there's many of them, but if I find a way to get this button pressed, which actually I've discovered a new way, if I were to swipe from the top down, not all the way down, but from here down, it will touch that button. It used to be that I had to click, right there to make that menu pop up, but you can just kind of swipe down from there and you'll get this. This is the text version of all the menus in Planet, so you can understand what you want to go to quickly. You'll see orange, purple, green, blue, yellow. And this is orange, purple, green, blue, yellow. Those are those menus, right? So then here I am, and I'm wanting to find the sun moon finder right here. Boom. I'm going to go into that feature. And when I go into that feature while I'm here in this view of VR, it now adjusts the information up here. Well, I want to change where it's looking. I want to change specifically where it's adjusted for. So I'm going to go up here and I'm not looking for the sunrise. I'm looking for a full moon. And I also want it to be inside my viewing area here. So instead of this altitude range, I'm going to click on that and then I'm going to hit scene, and it's going to go to where my scene is. And if I don't see it right away, like when I click on this and see the scene, then what I can do is I can hit scene and then I zoom back and I look for green lines. And there's a green line. I can see that green line over here. And I'm looking for a vertical line. And it's just somewhere behind me, not where I want it to be, turning and turning around, looking at all the different buildings in the Chicago area. And there's our tower. Wait, I'm not seeing our tower. Oh, there we go. I'm seeing the vertical line now, but I'm also not seeing the Sears Tower. So this is what's important, is this square. I'm going to make that bigger, but I also want to get myself pointed back to Sears Tower. So it looks like I'm turned completely around, and being a non-native, I couldn't realize that fast enough. So I'm rotating my spray. I'm going to point it where the dead center green line right there is overlapping my subject. And I'm going to go back into VR. And I'm going to change my focal length from 4 millimeter fisheye back to 70. Actually, no, let's go in smaller because I want to make sure that green square is somewhere. Okay, so here's where this is. Okay, bum, 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 bum. Let's go back in here. It's set for that. Scene, please. There's the green line there. Can I get the other? Sometimes this is feisty. I love this feature, but it can be feisty. So it's off here. So what I'm going to do, usually when you know the area better than I do, you can navigate that square onto your position. I think I flattened it. Okay, here it is. So this square is resizable by dragging, but at this 4 millimeter and all those 3D images, it's having a glitch trying to show it to me. It's like redrawing it and taking time. So I'm going to come move it over here. I'm going to rotate my camera and I'm going to move that square some more. Come on, square. Cooperate. Oh, this is showing the example of where it can be frustrating. And all of you get here too. I'm sure you've done apps like this and you're like, okay, see, Aaron, this is exactly what we hate about these apps because they're just not cooperative. We zoom in a little bit and get that square. Typically, when I go to the scene, for instance, if this is my subject and my scene and I have it selected like that, and I go in here and I say go to scene, it'll put it there. It'll put it on top of it. And when I go into the VR, I don't have to fight it as much, but right now I'm fighting it extra.
Are you looking for the moon? Is that what the problem is?
No, the problem is I need that grid. I need that grid to show up in my visual space right here so that I can navigate the shape of what I want it to search, but it's over here looking away. So I'll just turn around until I see the grid again, and you can see what I'm wanting. Okay, it's drawn the square. I think with this stream, it's also having a slow time showing me the shape of the square, and I just need it to be over by the Sears Tower. And I just need to keep moving it over and moving over and then move the square. Oh, here we go. When it gets to this point, victory. Now the square is usable. So what I want to do is I want to size this square down on top of the Sears Tower. I want it to be right here, Willis Tower. Is it only called Willis now, or is it just both?
Mostly called Willis.
Okay, Willis Tower. So Willis Tower here, I'm going to change my millimeter back to 70. And when I look up here now, I got my square shape and it's a big fat rectangle underneath, but I want to make this square be overlapping the spires of the Sears Tower or the Willis Tower. So I got the section chosen, and what I'm doing here, this tool, when it's not fighting you like that, it's defining within this square, hey, I want the full moon to be here. It recognizes the altitude and the azimuth, which azimuth is a 360 degrees around you. So from the perspective of where your camera is looking this way and that square defined, it says, oh, so this altitude, this azimuth, that's where you want to see a full moon. Let me show you where they are. Well, here, not defined much yet, is just January 15th through January 14th of next year. What if I want to be more forgiving than 6 results? Let's just show me 5 years. So from now until 5 years in the future, how many moons show up in that square? And there's 31. And 6 was great if I want to go sooner than later. But if you're ever planning something far out in advance, you can get 5 years of results. So let me just tap on the results and say, okay, when's the next one? It's March 31st, 2026, a full moon happens. Well, I have some options up here. I want it to be during blue hour, though. I don't want it to be too bright outside, but I don't want it to be middle of the day. And blue hour has no results. Okay, how about civil twilight at least? Okay, no results. Nautical twilight? How about astronomical twilight? Well, the direction I'm looking for the moon is just too late in the night typically. It rises in the east and it doesn't get over there for a while. So let's just say night. Not astronomical, but during the night. So March 31st is definitely during the night, and it's all the way around almost midnight. It's 11:12. Now all of a sudden there's a moon. And it's like, ooh, okay. So my composition plan was this, and I can get the moon in there. But I've also been informed, oh, the moon's kind of small at 70 millimeter. If I want it to be big, I need to use a bigger millimeter. Well, here's what I want to do. In the situation of planning a moonshot plus a building plus you, the best way to get the moon big on the building is to go further from the building and use that long lens that makes the moon big. Because at 70 millimeter, the moon's still kind of small, but at 200 millimeter, it becomes pretty big. So I'm going to go ahead and change my position of where I am. I'm going to keep my height, but I'm just going to move myself further back in the city. Say I'll go all the way over here. And let's make sure I'm lined up still. So when I use this tool to move, I know I can be lined up with my subject looking like that. And let's go back into the VR mode. So now let me turn my view down. Let me bring my square with me. I need to see the Willis Tower. Okay, there's the Willis Tower, looking at it from 70 millimeter, but now I'm seeing a lot more of the city. See how it's kind of delayed? It has that lag that's throwing me off. So then I go into this point and I say, all right, let's do full 200 millimeter from this location. And now I've got a tighter view of this Willis Tower again. And going over, going over. When did Sears change from Sears to Willis? When Sears closed?
They sold it
They
years
sold it.
ago. Yeah.
All right, and I'm catching on to the times. So now I have a new angle and a new timing is going to be included here. Now it's saying there's no results. Like I can't even get a result of the moon from this angle. But imagine if I had. Like I said, I have these old plans. Let me go to my plan of the Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty. Here's a plan. It's already been set and it's already got a time, January 14th, 2025. No, let's go to the plan of when it can work. I want to have a full moon at this view and change it not between the 24th, but let's go from today and go until 5 years later. So I've changed my result timing. So I'm standing here looking at the Statue of Liberty here, and I want the moon back there. I've already chosen the spot. They've got three results. I'm going to go ahead and hit the first one, November 14th, 2027. And if I do that, go into the VR mode, I can see the moon and I can see it big, and there's the Statue of Liberty. So now with the 3D model being in the perfect spot, like if I wanted to plan a Willis Tower shot, I got to get myself in a different position. I went so north of it, I should have gone more to the west of it so I can see an early rising moon and get myself lined up. But I wanted the spires to have those shapes. This is how I would plan it. This is why it's so specific to what time, what minute you're going to be there, and what your composition is going to look like. I know now that I go to New York and I'm there on November 14th, 2027 at 7:07 p.m., the moon will be exactly in there. Now, if I extend this square to be up a little bit more, it'll have more options than just those three results. There's one more result added between now and the 31st of 2031. So this is an awesome tool. And I've shown you precisely what's so cool about it. I wish I hadn't had to wrestle it with it in Chicago a little bit, but that's okay. We'll be fine. So, Planet is a precision tool. PhotoPills is a can I go there? Should I go there? And let me show you that while we're on the subject. When you're dealing with the planner in PhotoPills, it's the one that you're going to be in, but there's two of these pills that you're going to use. If you have the app of PhotoPills, go to it and come with me real quick for a quick lesson here. When you've got PhotoPills and you're not already over into pills, it's at the top here. Make sure you choose pills and go into that. And there's two things that are bare minimum that you need to know as a Milky Way photographer. The planner, where it shows you kind of a similar view that we saw on Planet, and Moon. Those two are really critical. For one use only, you will go to this pill down at the bottom called Spot Stars. And we're going to talk about that here later. But for now, the planner is important for knowing whether or not a Milky Way would work. Let's see, where am I in the world? In PhotoPills, they don't have plans that you save. You can save a plan out, but you don't navigate that way. So it just sits where you left it last, like the other app. But there's no way to like have it just spring back there without loading a plan. And a plan works similar to the plans in Planet, where it's just specific to an exact minute, time, and everything, and a location. But I don't often create those. There's no habit necessary here to create those plans. They're a good habit to make if you'd like to. But for here, I just navigate and use it quickly and scout around. So this particular location looks like it's close to Price and it's off the road. I think this was, oh, I can't quite recognize that, but I think it's Devil's Garden. I think this is Devil's Garden area. I don't know exactly where I am, but I'm looking at that, but it sure looks like Devil's Garden. And yeah, I'm sure it is. So when you're looking at Planner, you have a red pin for where you are, but there's no pin for where you're looking. You're just going to try and see real quick. If I wanted a Milky Way over the Adventure Pinnacles that are right here, yeah, those are definitely the Adventure Pinnacles. When's a good time to go? If I click on the clock down here, just tap it once, it'll drop up and say, hey, what time do you want it to be? Or if I double tap it, it'll go to right now. So at 7:28 Utah time, it's looking over pinnacles and would it be a good opportunity for Milky Way? When you're looking at PhotoPills, these balls right here, this arching set of balls, as you're going through this timeline, you're going to slide this part down here with your finger to go back and forth in the time. And you're also going to watch how the arching shape of the Milky Way goes through the night sky. And right here in January, you don't see the core. But if you were to go forward in time, if you look at that PDF I gave you, it talks about how these up here, these modules, they also have buttons. And I'm going to go over here to this one. This module talks about the galactic center and Milky Way max elevation and has a picture of the Milky Way core. What's cool about this button is when you hit it once, it'll go to the next new moon. That's January 18th, new moon after that, February 17th, after that, and after that, let's go to May. May 16th, 2026 is the new moon night. So now it's taking me quickly forward in time. And you can see, if I go back in time, there's this gray and gray wedge that's narrow. Go forward a month in May, that becomes a larger wedge. Go forward into June, it becomes the largest wedge it can be. And it stays that way throughout all the nights until September 12th. It's a smaller wedge. And then it goes bigger again in the summer months. So this wedge here is defining your opportunity for when the Milky Way core is up at night. It doesn't care about the moon. It only talks about whether the Milky Way core is above the horizon and below the horizon, or it's risen of the sunrise has started, so now it stops being visible, or the astral twilight finally ended. So when it shows me this line, for instance, right now, when I match this up, here's sunset, here's a twilight period, different colors, and then it goes fully dark right as soon as I get there. Boom. That transition to color right there with no color anymore means it's no longer twilight period. And it's right on top of that gray slice. That's a lighter gray color. And that's the beginning of the opportunity of seeing the Milky Way core without twilight period. It's full darkness. Moon notwithstanding, it's just talking about the Milky Way core being up. Now, right here, this thicker line is the Milky Way core going through these balls that represent the arch of the Milky Way. So in PhotoPills, the three things that you need to know about Planner that will help you as a Milky Way photographer is understanding that you got to slide this to transition through the night and see where the Milky Way moves through the night sky so that you're knowing, oh, I'm looking here, there's the core, and there's the core, and it keeps moving. And you need to understand the wedge right here. If you're not seeing these circles right here or the balls representing the arch, the Milky Way, remember that these modules have buttons and the first squares are typically a button. There's no button on this one, but this next one is the one I would want. If you were by chance not seeing it, you click on that and then it turns off those circles. Click on it again, it turns them on. So if you're not seeing the concentric rings right here and the balls representing the arch of the Milky Way, make sure you turn Visibility Galactic Core on, and then you'll see what I'm seeing. And also with seeing the actual lines down below, you can see twilight periods, you can see only the moon, only the sun. You can jump from moon phases. This is where you turn off only sun ephemeris, only moon ephemeris lines, and none of the sun and the moon, just the Milky Way. I like to keep on all of them. That's a feature. Remember that there's buttons. Remember that the Milky Way is only visible once it's dark and you start to see those lines. And remember that when you see this gray line is the beginning of the opportunity and the end is here. It doesn't think about the moon, but you can see that here is a moon that's been risen. If you know ephemeris at all, you can see how the risen moon starts on that far right, light blue color, and then as it tracks throughout the night, it's up and it's telling you that it's up. It's like, okay, so if you see that extra thin line that's blue to dark blue, you know that the moon is up at the same time, and this will be a terrible night to go. But you have to kind of know that intuitively and read it well. So in the planner pill, you'll know the anatomy of those parts. I'm a bit rushing right now to make sure you have this, but you have the guide that I gave you in the PDF, and we can talk about it in the Q&A here shortly. The other part that you want to know, like you want to think, okay, should I go because the moon is going to be out of my way? Instead of trying to recognize the planner having that line, I like to go to the moon pill and handle it from there. And typically, if I know a location works and I'm just curious about when's the moon out of my way, I go here to the moon pill first. And you can tap on settings and change your location. It's like, okay, my position. Let's do Mesa Arch. And Mesa Arch pops up and I hit done. So over here on Mesa Arch Trail near Monticello, Utah by Moab, this is how the moon's looking on January 15th. It's a waning crescent. And if I click on these arrows, it'll go forward and backwards in days. And I can see information down below. And this is the stuff that's interesting. So if I go back previous days, from sunrise, or I'm sorry, midnight, beginning of the day, till what's next. And what happens to be next is a moonrise at 4:28. Then there's a sunrise at 7:36. Then there's a moonset at 1:38 p.m. and a sunset. Those are the only events of the night that are recorded here. From the beginning of the day at 12 a.m. till the end of the day, a moon rises, sun rises, a moon sets, and a sun sets on the 14th. Today, same story. Tomorrow, first time at Mesa Arch that actually there's more. There's actually 1 minute of galactic center visibility. It happens just before sunrise. Actually, no, it happens for the astro twilight period. So sunrise is 7:35. Rewind back, astro twilight somewhere up here, and typically when it shows you that the core has risen and then it stops you right away a minute, that's just your indicator. Oh, astronomical twilight's at 6:02 a.m. So it went from full darkness to astro twilight within 1 minute of finally having that Sagittarius A asterisk on the horizon finally is above that 0 degree mark. But a minute later, it was astro twilight. So the window exists, but not really. This is the weakest window ever. 1 minute starting tomorrow. So the Milky Way is coming back technically, but there's not much to work with that, with 1 single minute of it being visible. Now, remember when I showed you my phone and I pointed to the fingers being in the center there and how they've set when the fingers are down, but there's still half the phone visible. So there's fingers that haven't risen yet, and you'll see half of the Milky Way core. So if you did want to force something and you didn't care that the time lapse was going into a brighter astronomical period, you could do it. You have 1 minute of the core being visible mostly for with no other lights and just full darkness, but the minute ends immediately. So you could do a time lapse, see nothing, see the Rho-Ophiuchi rise, see the Milky Way get this far, then it gets brighter, and that's the end of the time lapse. So you could do something, but I would never go myself. If I was already out, then I would do something. And you can see here quickly on the moon pill that, all right, the time that the Milky Way core rises to the point where the Milky Way core ends, there's no moon rising in between it or setting in between it. It looks like the moon rises at 6:20. So the moon doesn't get in my way at all. And as I go forward in time for like a better window of Milky Way, all right, 15 minutes nearly of visibility. But what's happening with the moon? Well, the moon rises at 8:50 a.m. and sets at 7:35. Oh, okay. I mean, the night before, if I look at the 18th, it looks like the moon set at 5:23. So going into the morning of the 19th, when I had 15, I'm sorry, going back to the 20th, where I had 15 minutes of time, I got nothing to worry about with the moon. The moon doesn't rise till many hours later, and it's already been set for a while. So I look at this window opportunity and go, okay, I can go. So if I'm trying to go to Mesa Arch, say, let's not jump that slowly. Let's jump quicker, and let's go to June. Let's go to a June date, 2026. Go. And if I wanted to quickly watch a TV show, and I'm just going to quickly tap through this and look at my window of opportunity, the Milky Way rises or it becomes visible at 10:43. And the next day, tap the next day, 4:03 a.m. is when it stopped being visible because of astro twilight. What about the moon? I'm talking July 1st here. Well, the moon is rising on the night I want to go, June 30th at 9:47, and it's not setting until the next morning until 7:18. So that means the entire night I have a moon up. So that's a bad time to go. Let's go further back in time. I'm going to watch as the moon moves from the moon set to be later and later. Okay, this is an interesting night. So on Wednesday, June 17th, the moon sets at 11:32. And then I go over to June 18th. Well, the moon doesn't rise until 9:55. And so that means from the moon set at 11:32 p.m. on June 17th, Wednesday, to the early morning hours of sunrise, I won't have another moon coming in my way. I won't have any problems unless the clouds come up. I've got a window of opportunity. So you can see how the calendar and planet is really beneficial because it just gives you a quick shortcut to that day without having to use PhotoPills to get there. But this is pretty intuitive, and you can just quickly check. Say you're already somewhere, you're definitely going to be there. Let me just find out my window of opportunities like on June 21st. I'm going to be down on Mesa Arch. All right. Well, the morning of June 21st, the moon sets at 12:55, so I can't do any Milky Way until at least 12:55, and then it's going to be clean of all the moonlight, and I'll be good all the way until 4 a.m. All right. Well, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., that's 3 hours of time. That's fine with me. I'll do that. I'll do a Milky Way shot that night. There's no moon in my way. I'm good to go. And that's how I use PhotoPills to quickly check. All right, I could go. I could do it. So that moon window of opportunity, the apps that help you know when that window of opportunity happens, they're hypercritical for you to be successful with your Milky Way. But let's talk about how to actually do the rest. And I've jumped into a lot of information on the Planet app and stuff that's going to answer the conditions of other elements that we're going to go into later that I'll just quickly remind you about. So
Hey,
if you
Aaron.
yeah, I know
Well,
it's a half an hour till 20 minutes till to start a Q&A.
yeah. One more thing is I've noticed there's also Stellarium is also an app that can help you
Yes,
because
there's
if you
many other apps that have astro information, and Solarium is one that I do use. You can see when it comes to like the apps that I use, I have Sky Guide for my phone because I'm an iPhone user, and Stellarium is one of
right.
them on there. And it will show you where the moon is in the sky and help you plan, especially for constellation information. Stellarium. I won't get constellations in PhotoPills, but I will get constellations in Planet. And so Planet has constellation help, and Stellarium is massive. So like when there was that comet that came out, the Neowise comet in 2020, Stellarium was always used. So like, oh, I want to see what that comet is and when it rises and when it sets.
And
So
you're
that's a good
talking
tip.
about finding where different constellations are, and you just point Stellarium up to the sky and move it around, and you can see, oh, what's okay over there is
Yeah,
where the Milky Way is about to. It's under the horizon, but it's about to rise because I can see it, and then I can say, okay, in about half an hour, I better be getting ready, because you can see it about to rise.
yeah, precisely. And so with the Q&A, are you guys all okay if we do the Q&A like 5 minutes till, and then just have anyone who has questions just hang out with me a little bit longer and just hang here? Would that be okay? Or should I give us 10 minutes at least? Carlos, what do you
Uh,
think the consensus might be?
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Because I get giddy about these planet apps and showing it, but also when we slowly go through it to make sure everyone knows, it eats up more time than I always expect. And so I went a little long there. But let's just go into knowing the conditions of the night sky to help you know if we should go. You've learned the Milky Way, you learned the moon, and you understand that you have an area that you want to go. Typically, the first thing you're thinking about is that area going to be good with light pollution? Because we're thinking you're on the east coast side of the United States. I'm on the west side. Over there on the east side, you have islands of darkness. Some places are dark. Over here on the west, where I am, there's some places are really light. We have islands of light. So it's easy to dodge islands of light in Utah, and it's much easier to do that than it is in Chicago to go find an island of darkness where you can actually get away from light pollution. So when you're thinking about using Planet or PhotoPills and you're thinking Milky Way core, you're already going to assess in your head, okay, where can I get away from the light pollution? And then once you get away from the light pollution and you're thinking, okay, what's cool in the light pollution? Then you can go into Google Earth and apps like those to plan what you shoot around in that nice low light pollution area. So when you're thinking about knowing the conditions of the night, that helps you, okay, I know that the Milky Way will be up. I know the moon will be out of my way, but is it really a good night to go? Yes, the Milky Way is going to have a good sky and the moon will be out of my way, but will the conditions of the night be good with weather and light pollution? Clouds and light pollution are your next enemies. And lightpollutionmap.info is what I like to use. Where is that? Oh, yeah, here's it is. So let's go to lightpollutionmap.info to show you this website. This is a great site for updated. It gets pretty updated well on where the light pollution is. And I was talking about those islands of light versus islands of dark. You can see what I mean. Here's that east side of the United States where you have these islands, these few island chains of darkness, where over here on the west where I live, there's just islands, chains of light that we're dodging. Like in Utah, I just drive away from all of this and I've already got a great place to go. In Chicago, when you're thinking about leaving there, you don't have much forgiveness when it comes to light. You got to go quite a ways away to get away from that. I mean, now I don't know how many of you are driving over here into Kansas to get away from it, but you can.
Yeah, there's actually a dark sky park in Illinois. It's called Middle Fork River Preserve. It's about 45 minutes northeast of Champaign, Urbana, about 2.5 hours south of Chicago, or
Two and
like
a half
far
hours
from.
south of Chicago.
Yeah, yeah, where I'm driving. It's that. Yeah, like you see Champaign there, Champaign, Urbana,
Yeah, I see
and
Champaign, Bloomington,
there's a
Bloomington.
dark. Yeah,
Yeah,
right up like Rantoul. Right, go to the right of Rantoul. That blue area, right? Yeah,
this stuff right here that I'm seeing. So
yeah,
here's
it's in
Rantoul,
there. It's
here's
in
Paxton,
right,
Buckley, and
right.
this
It's right in
area.
that blue area right there.
Yep.
And it's a Bortle 3 sky. If you're probably going to explain what that means.
I won't go into the Bortle levels just to know that Locations. The lower number, the lower number is the better one. You want to get border 1, 2, 3, or 4. But here's what I want to emphasize: if you have a place like this island of dark, and you don't have a particular subject that you're really focused on, you're like, if you're not keen to go here versus here, and you're open to go and scout, what I recommend is this: in this situation, put as much of the clearer, darker sky between you and the core as possible. Which, what I mean by that is, if you were to take this space right here alone, you are technically in Bortle 3 standing here and here and here. But between you and the Milky Way, you have Hoopston. You have Hoopston in your way. And that is going to be a bloom of light that'll be blocking you. So you want to go on the other side of Hoopston to capture, that bloom behind you, and you want the core to not have any obstruction of the light. Well, now you're thinking, okay, well, where in this lima bean shape of blue should I be? If you're here, you're technically in the 3, but you're really close to where the light pollution comes up, which means the glow that you'll see in the horizon will be higher up in your image. You'll have it visibly different on the sky higher up. When you look at my favorite image, where I have the light pollution of Salt Lake City right here, this is my second favorite image. Let's see if that's loaded anywhere. Let me just navigate to it here. There we go. This is the light bloom of Salt Lake City and that whole valley area. Very bright. But because it's so far away from me, that light bloom, despite being very vibrant, is lower and lower and lower in my composition, and it doesn't really mess up things. It's definitely distracting, which is why we did our silhouettes inside of it, because it gave it some purpose to exist. Otherwise, it would just be kind of this massive bloom that I try and paint away somehow, and it would look really weird there. So it's interesting with us playing into it than it is to trying to shy away from it. But the closer I go to Salt Lake, that bloom's going to be higher and higher in my image. So you're looking at a place like this, if you're planning and you don't have any particular tree involved or any goal in mind, you can go to any tree. Make sure you pick one that's in this area where it's like up here. So say between February and July, anywhere up here would be good, because the Milky Way is down here in the southeast. If you're anywhere past June and going into the fall, you can go up on this side where you're looking towards this bloom of Hoopston, and the core would be there. So you probably go a little further south, maybe one of these areas, to get a nice long gap here. So you have a longer stretch of clear, clear dark sky between you and the core is going to give you the clearest, most highest quality capture of the core that you can get. Or anywhere that you could just finally get to, safely go to, private land versus public land. You can actually go on it because it's actually plump. It's actually public. Those are kind of the considerations you make when you're going to a location like this and where it's safe to be. You have to just kind of deal with those constraints. But if you can control it and you have a big swath of land to choose from, go into it where you put a big stretch of dark sky between you and the core. If you go to the edge of the dark sky and you're looking into the higher, lighter sky into the core, you will notice it. Your bloom will go higher in your composition. Okay, so
Aaron,
that's
what is the name of the app that you're in?
this is lightpollutionmap.info, and it looks
Oh,
like this: lightpollutionmap.info, all one word. I recommend this for light pollution. It'll solve all your light pollution needs for that. So thanks for asking, and thanks for jumping in and asking that. So just pick a dark site that works for you, and then you have the timing of your knowledge of the Milky Way, when to go and how to do it. Clouds. This is the other one. This is where you start to use my double witness of clearoutside and cleardarksky.com. This will be on the video so you can have those notes there, but I only really use cleardarksky.com, windy, weather apps, and then I back it up with Astrospheric. But Astrospheric uses the same weather model prediction as Clear Dark Sky. And what I mean by that is this. Let's go into my phone. When you go into the windy app right here, this red icon, windy, this is what I use for day of predictions and radars and checking to see how things are looking. But what I have not opened it up this year. What I have here is a quick reference to all the weather models, the predictive models that give you your clouds. So in this menu down below, don't bother following me, just kind of watch on the screen. There's a clouds layer. And on the clouds layer, yellow is good, white are clouds. And you can see that most of southern Utah is pretty dang open. But if I wanted to go to Bonneville Salt Flats, which is right here in Wendover, and see, oh crap, there's clouds. There's some good clouds all over this area. If I want to recreate that image from the Salt Flats where I'm looking back at Great Salt Lake and have that bloom and have the panorama Milky Way, that's a bad night of clouds. But is it going to be that way? And what I do is I click on the menu and I go down here and I look at the different forecast models available. ECMWF is the same one as Astrospheric. So they are using the same one. Clear Dark Sky, Astrospheric are using this one. So Clear Dark Sky will conform with what I'm seeing here for Thursday the 15th. Let's go back over and show you what Clear Dark Sky looks like. Those of us in the United States, we benefit from Clear Dark Sky. Love it. Absolutely accurate. And it has USA locations, Canada locations, Mexico, and Bahamas. That's it. If you're in Europe, you use clearoutside.com. Clearoutside.com has less accuracy thanks to its 5 days in advance model that it likes to use, and the fact that it's basing it off of the weather and extrapolating the cloud predictions. It's just extrapolating based off of data of populated cities that are on here. For instance, I can't look up Mesa Arch, it won't have it. But if I look up Moab, Utah, that's nearby Mesa Arch, it will have it. And then it'll show me the forecast for Moab, Utah. Well, I wanted to go to Wendover for the Salt Flats, and I can't do the Salt Flats, so I'll do over Utah. Wendover, Utah. And here we go. In Wendover, Utah, oh my God, time is going by so fast. Wendover, Utah, it shows me that there are clouds as it gets into 11 o'clock, midnight, plenty of clouds all throughout the night. When I go back to my Windy app, I'm looking at 8 p.m. here. Well, this prediction thinks, well, 8 p.m. is not so bad right now. It's not looking like there's any clouds, but Windy is saying that there are, according to one model. When I change my model to the other ones, I like to keep the location of the map that I want to see visible, and I zoom out a little bit so that I can keep it over here on that left edge, because this whole shelf pops out and overlaps, and it's easiest to just see things fast by going GFS model. Oh, no clouds. Icon model, a little bit of clouds. HRRR actually has it working, and it's showing a little bit of clouds. HRDPS, yep, classic, it's not working. It's all gray. You can see how it has information right to this point, but nothing beyond. And so I don't use HRDPS that often. The NAM, what's it showing? Okay, so NAM says no clouds. HRR says a little clouds. Icon says decent amount. GFS says no clouds. And ECMWF says clouds. I basically have 3 out of 5 that say there's clouds, and the third one of those 5 is kind of a few clouds. So basically, I got an optimistic view that at 8 p.m. it might be okay. So I will look the day of and match this up and look at it and see, all right, the predictive models were pretty optimistic out of 5, but ECMWF is my most trustworthy model. And if it says it's this bad, I'll usually try and avoid it and think, okay, instead of Wendover, I'll go to Ely, Nevada, and go down to the Ward Charcoal Kilns. So I'm thinking Ward Charcoal Kilns, how are they looking throughout the night? Let me try the other models at 8 p.m. GFS, no clouds. Icon, no clouds. HRRR, no clouds. NAM, oh, sweet, no clouds. Well, now let's go into the actual hour of my Milky Way core, which would like be 5 a.m. How are the clouds looking there? And then I work my way through the models. So when you're checking for clouds, you're going to use clearoutside.com and Clear Sky Charts, cleardarksky.com to be 2 witnesses to give you what's going on. If I was thinking about Utah and I wanted to go to Bonneville Salt Flats, I'll look at the map and I'll pick the closest weather station to Bonneville Salt Flats. Bonneville Salt Flats are right here, but the Knolls is the closest weather station there. It's an actual weather station with data from that local area, from that exact spot that the information is being gathered from, and then the forecast is given based off of that information, which is why it makes it so accurate, because it's got an actual weather station there with data that's being updated all the time. Last update was at 5:08 today. So if I had to look at what happens tonight on the Knolls, I'm pretty confident that it looks pretty good. But what does it really look like at, say, it's kind of cloudy around 4 and 5, because dark blue is good, light blue is not as good. But like 5 a.m., you can see right before sunrise, 6 a.m., that's kind of the hour that's going to be good. Oh, but hackers are banging the life out of the site, overloading all the servers. Oh, no.
Hey, Aaron, it's almost 9 o'clock.
Cool.
Why don't we, yeah, we covered a lot of this stuff. Why don't we get over to the settings, camera settings, the actual technique?
Yep, that sounds great. That sounds great. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the techniques. So knowing the clouds are not there, like half the battle for Milky Way is knowing where to go, when to go, and whether the clouds are going to bum you out and ruin your shot. All right. When it comes to the next steps, it's very easy. It feels like I've given this a perfunctory effort on showing you what might be in your mind the most important steps. But the best news is that the steps are very obvious and the settings are very consistent. And you don't have to do any weird magic or weird spells to make things work. And I'm going to show you. So for camera gear, you already saw this lens. The camera that I use is that one up there. I have a 50 millimeter that I hardly ever use because I hate focusing it. I have that Tamron 15 to 30, and I have this lens. That's it. So the good news for most of you is that you really don't need a lot of gear. In all my 10 years of doing Milky Way photography, I've captured nearly all of my images with this one lens. And it's a Rokinon 24 millimeter prime that cost me like $350 used. And it's gone great. It's now no longer collimated and focusing well, and it's just got age. It's been worn out. I've driven it on dirt roads and shaken it a lot. And so it's really ready to be retired. And it's basically retired right now. I need to buy a new lens. This year I need to get new gear. That camera can't take pictures anymore. It shows poor quality on the images. So I'm not using it anymore either. So if you were to just have one good lens, you could capture all these images. These images I was showing you so far, I showed you my favorite one, my salt flats one, the inside the sand cave where I took that. Those are my top 3 images. All of those have been captured with this same lens. Same lens. 15. This is the 15 to 20, 15 to 30 Tamron. 24 millimeter, 24 millimeter, 24 millimeter panorama, 24 millimeter panorama, 24 millimeter. It's the exact same lens in all of these shots. And over the years of doing it. And so you don't need a lot of gear. What you do think maybe for trackers, we won't go into unless anyone brings them up, but trackers are a next step up. And none of these shots that I'm showing off as some of my favorite images of all time have been tracked. Not a single one. They're all just single image awesomeness. So when it comes to gear, don't overcomplicate things. The thing that you need to know is that your lens needs to have a nice and big aperture. Now, you won't see my lens really well, but I have a video on my YouTube channel that shows off the aperture of that lens and this lens up here. And you'll see that, oh my God, these are way big on these large f-stops of f1.4 or f2.8. If you can get an aperture that's nice and large, a light bucket that's massive, that's the best thing you can do for your lens. Don't worry so much about it being an expensive lens. Don't worry so much about it being a perfect millimeter. There's many different millimeters. But if you get one that has a nice f2, f1.4 in that range, you're going to be very, very, very happy. And it's going to help you in post, not necessarily fix your image and make it amazing, but you're going to have less things to fix in post. That's the only thing about gear I'll even tell you about. But exposure, this is important. The good thing is 2 out of the 3 things you need to know on exposure, you can do it instantly, and it all is decided by what lens you attach to your camera. So the first thing on the exposure is the aperture. The second is shutter. Third is ISO. And then the aperture, flat out decided by the lens. And when you use, oh, I turned off my phone. Let me see if my phone is still connected. It should still be, but where's my reflector? Make sure my phone is connected. Oh, it's not. I disabled it. But on the app of PhotoPills, that one spot stars feature that I told you about, the only time you'll ever use it is once, just to learn what your lenses and your camera body ends up giving you for a setting on your shutter, which is next. So looking at my phone, I've got PhotoPills up, and we're going to go into that because when you pick this lens, the aperture, widest open you can hold it without worrying about coma. The widest aperture of that lens, as much as you can handle. This is an f1.4 that I stopped down to f2 to fix coma. That one I don't have to fix coma on, but I do keep it at max, and its max is f2.8. So when you see coma aberration, this is what an example looks like. This image right here that has hidden in the background. And here is an example of bad coma. In the corner, you get a stretch like angel wings on your stars, and a bad lens will have coma really bad on the edges, but the center is still okay. So if you do a panorama with it and then just use the center parts of the panoramas, you're really good shape. You won't see the coma that much. But if you have good coma, which I think I can just change right here. Here we go. You'll see that when you zoom up in the corners, you don't get as bad of the angel wings. You might have a little stretching that's extra on the edges compared to the center, but you don't have the coma problem that you had before. And Terry's, remember what that is? Rho Ophiuchi complex. Don't forget that. So that's what coma is, and that is only time you ever stop down from your widest open aperture is if your lens suffers from some coma. This suffers from some coma. It's a $350 lens, so it has some coma, but if I stop it down to f2, it's terrific. That one doesn't suffer from the same coma, but it's f2.8 at the biggest. So your aperture is decided for you, just whatever lens you pick. Then the shutter is also based off of the camera body plus the MPF rule, and that's where Spot Stars comes in. It's in the PhotoPills app. You go down here to Spot Stars, and you can see the MPF rule. You used to think 500 rule, 600 rule, 400 rule, and it would give you many, many, many seconds, but they're not going to be good. You want to do something like the MPF rule plus 4, just a nice accurate shot. If you have a Nikon Z8 that happens to have a 24 millimeter, your MPF rule says 4 seconds is as long as you can go for a shutter before it starts to trail a little bit. And when I do the FPS plus 4, like I do 8 seconds on this. This says 4 seconds for this guy on my Canon 5D Mark IV, but I do 8 seconds. And you can see up here, the top frame, that's what 8 seconds looks like compared to 30 seconds and how it's trailing. So when it looks like that, the 30 seconds, then it's bad. But what it sees at the top, no big deal, nothing crazy. So then you have your toughest challenge in exposure, and it's the only one that you're going to have to do some pictures to see how it goes. The rest are answered for you. I grab this lens. Oh, I'm going to be wide open, but then stop down to f2, and I'm going to go for 8 seconds. Oh, I grab the Tamron. I'm going to be at f2.8, and I'm going to go to 13 seconds. Those are decided. I never change them. It's never any different. There's no reason to do any different. So my shutter and my aperture on the exposure triangle, covered. Totally. ISO is where you got to test it. And it's all decided by histogram. So here's an example of an underexposed Milky Way. And here's an example of a Milky Way that's overexposed a little bit, but oh no, this is right on. This is this lens. This is 8,000. This is very close on. It just seemed a little bright to me right now as I went from here to here. It just seems so extreme. But this is a good exposure. And you're going to do that too. You're going to go, oh, it's too bright. But in reality, it's not. Not when you think about how it's edited. This is a picture, and the same favorite picture that I have, that's just now too many images open in the background. This is all done at 8,000 ISO, 8,000 ISO, 8,000 ISO, 8,000 ISO. These are all 8,000 ISO on that lens. And so you can see how it's not actually too bright after all. So then when you think about what ISO for your camera, you just got to test it and you got to base it off of a histogram. I'm not going to pull up my iPad because of the time, but this is what I was going to talk about, how you have a black spike for your foreground that's all dark. And then between that part of the histogram and your midtones, you want separation. You don't want them on top of each other. You want them separated. And then whatever hump shape you got, 2 humps, 3 humps, 1 big one, it depends on your camera body. You're going to have a hump of midtones, a lot of midtones from the sky and space and Milky Way core. If you point your camera towards the core, you don't have any lights on, your histogram will look like this. And depending on your ISO, it'll change. ISO 1600, all shoved to the left, too tight, too crunched, not good, underexposed. A little bit more at f32 at ISO 3200, but that's got barely a gap between the negative of the blacks spike and the foreground. It's just not not the foreground, the midtones of the Milky Way core. That difference between there, that little gap is not enough. As I get to ISO 5000, I start to separate them even more. I got the midtones separated from the blacks decently, so I'm not crunching it as bad, but it's not quite enough because the foot right here of the hump needs to touch the center of your histogram. If it gets the center, then you've hit the right ISO. And it depends on your camera. If you have a camera that's ISO invariant, then you don't have to do this as tough, but I would recommend no lower than 3200 and then just start from there. But people who come out with me with their ISO and variant cameras, anywhere from 3200 to 6400, they're very happy. Just look at your histogram and see how it looks and make sure that you get a good histogram. And if you see that is happening in your camera, then you know you have an easier thing to work with in post processing. As you look through all these different examples, you can see how at 8,000 on my camera, my particular lens, that looks great. But then at 10,000, it starts to get overdone. And further on to 12,800, way beyond the middle, it's just a little too much. And so you can see how, depending on that ISO and where you put it, you're going to crunch your histogram. And underexposed is a death knell to good photos. Yeah, you'll think it looks cool because it's nice and dark, but it's not a wise way to go about it. You don't want to do that. So you can see on the iPad, but we're not going to do that. Here's ISO 8000 RAW, and here's the other shots on RAW. Do I show the big one? I think I show a big one later. No, I don't. Okay. Right here, you can see all the way from 1600 all the way to ISO 12,800 and how the RAWs looked at that exact same shot, exact same spot. And it's severely underexposed to just okay to just right to just a little too much overexposed. And I find that 8,000 works great for me. You'll probably find that 6,400 works great for you. And once you decide that and you've seen the ISO, whatever night it is, whatever conditions of the sky, you never change it. There's no reason to change it. You've learned, Aaron, this lens is 8,000 ISO and it's also f2, and you're going to do a 8-second shutter. Boom. Aaron, you grab that lens. Okay, this is 13-second shutter. It's 2.8 because that's the widest I can make it, but I'm going to go for a 10,000 ISO on that lens. That's what it likes. That's what looks better. That's when I get the histogram to the right spot. And once you do that, you don't have to change anything else. You don't have to do anything else differently. Then your Milky Ways will come out great. Blip, 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 blip. Set all that stuff. Here's the last thing we're going to talk about with execution, and it's focus. Because if you get your focus right and you're executing your exposure correctly, you've got a chance for a good shot. And composition, we just won't go into it very long tonight. I'll do a composition tip in between the Q&A questions for those hanging out with me. And I'll go as long as you guys want to go, since I've already taken up your time for 2 hours. But I just want to emphasize that if you get your focus right and you expose well and you have an interesting subject, you're going to be fine. And sometimes, like I said, you can't control a certain element and it's not your fault. But for focus, I just want to help you see. You guys are not going to watch this tonight with me, but you're going to have homework. Carlos, if you can link them something for me on my channel. If you go to the Aaron King YouTube channel, you'll see all my tips, and my focus tips are all right here on the 2-minute tips. You don't have to go beyond the 2-minute tip to get your answer on focus. This one right here is that Milky Way in focus is going to give you the best answer. But then my third most popular video is this focus one, and it shows it in more detail on how to use
a loop.
Yeah, the loop. The Carson Lumi loop to help you get that focus. Because you get it manually done, he'll be much happier in how to do it. So watch those videos to get more tips on the focus, but I'm going to give you the second tip on focus here. And this is the too many dots. Too many dots is something that you may understand as I talk about this, or you may go over your head on what I'm referring to. So pay attention closely to the pictures I'm showing, because there's minor differences between these two pictures that I hope you'll see through the live stream and through this. Here is a shot of something in focus. Here's a shot of it going out of focus, progressively worse. So do you notice the difference between these? The very most out of focus one, you're noticing the big gemstones of stars. You know, you can almost see the constellations. As you can see the tea kettle right here, they get really bad. And if you go to a smaller image, it becomes more obvious. Like the sea of stars here are kind of uniform and sandy, just all there they are. But I look at this image on the right, out of focus, it's very obvious that you're seeing dots. Even through the low resolution of our live stream, you're probably seeing the dots like I'm referring to. Carlos reference, you can see that difference, right?
Yep.
So when you go to a shot and you're getting your focus, this is what I recommend. You get your camera, you get up there, tripod, don't do your composition yet. Focus on your focus, because you want to be able to turn towards the brightest star somewhere in the sky, wherever you can see a star, and you want it on your live view back here. You'll see this in the video. Then you get your Carson Lumi loop and you go in your live view, and one hand has the focus and the Lumi loop going, and your other hand is on the focus ring of your lens, and you're working back and forth until you get that dot, which is going to be an annoying shape. You wish it was like Out of focus, obvious. In focus, obvious. It's not. It's this stupid, weird amoeba orb that is like this and moving on you. And then it's like this and moving on you. It's like neither of them look good, but one of them's in focus. It's frustrating. None of them look good, but one's correct. And so you have to get used to that on your camera, which is why that like lens, that 50 millimeter, I don't use anymore because I can't find it. It's so annoying. But on the F24, this guy, or this F2 at 24 millimeter, this guy, it's so much easier. I can
So
see
you're
it.
saying when the dot is at its smallest, that's
Yes,
when it's
you've
correct.
got this amoeba shape that's swimming on you and making all sorts of twinkling lights, and then you make it smaller, and you keep going. And you see that it kind of gets bigger again, and then it gets smaller and bigger again, and you just keep going till you get smaller. And you're thinking, "Oh, Aaron, I don't know if I'm in the right range. I think it's the smallest now." And what you do then is you take a picture. Get it to that point, take a picture, and then you look at it and go, okay, I got the picture. Now do your focus again and get it as small as you can. Really pay attention to where the shapes are and use your Lumi Loop to really magnify what you're seeing on that star. And now you've got what you think is even tighter, maybe, and then take a picture. And now you compare them, and you'll find that you'll see a difference if it's actually out of focus a lot. What I like to do with beginners, and I think it was you with Carlos, is I had to take a picture before you even did focus. You got a section where you want to focus. We got a star. We found it. We're good. Let me just take a picture as is. It was our before picture, our out of focus, obvious out of focus picture. Then I had him go into focus and we got that one as tight as we could. Then we took a picture. And when you compare them, you will see this. You will see that there's not too many dots. When you go from out of focus on the right into focus on the left, there is a visible difference. And on the back of your camera, you will see dots. And then you will see kind of a uniform shape that's not really like maybe 5 dots are standing out, but not 12 to 40. If you have 40 plus dots that are standing out, you're most likely out of focus. There's too many dots. And then you just kind of tweak it again in focus and then take another picture. As long as you don't move your camera, the comparison back and forth, it'll really pop. You will see, oh, yeah, that's definitely a bigger dot than before. The one now that I just took has smaller dots and they're all uniform. Ooh, I'm in focus. And you don't have to worry about that amoeba shape being the correct amoeba shape. As long as you got too many dots that went to a sea of sand that are all uniform, then you're like, oh, I nailed it. I'm in the range that's accurate and it looks good. And this is what I want you to know. Make sure you get your focus like this. And the video talks about that some more, but I think I gave you even more helpful tips on how to understand this here on our live stream than I did in the video. So I need to do another video like that here in the next month to remind people about the too many dots method, because I think there's more visual aids I can give to help them understand it. But that's focus. And once you nail that, you got it. I know that that seems like Aaron's only taught you practically nothing how to hold your camera and how to do, because he's told you your lens goes on, you have 2 of the 3 choices made for you. Then you find your ISO by just histogram checking. You take a picture, look at your histogram. Oh, it's not touching the foot of the mid-tones are not touching the middle. Take it again. Boom. Oh, that's too crunchy. The blacks and the mid-tones are crunched together too much. Up my ISO, take it again. And you find your ISO out in practice and you do it right there that night. And then once you have it, you don't have to change it ever again. So you only have to do that once, really, per lens. So when it comes to executing a nice shot in Milky Way, it comes down to focus, exposure, and composition. And honestly, when we talk about light pollution, how to avoid it, and what to do, just come to Utah. Just come out here to Utah and go to a nice clear sky where it's really easy to get a cool shot. Lots of cool features, not moving trees that are going to move on you in your shots, just clean rocks that don't change, and you can get some really cool compositions. So I want to take your questions, and hopefully the questions will answer anything that's missing that I didn't go over. But if there's anything that I did go over that because I rushed the last half of my lesson, I rushed it because I got foolishly excited about Planet. If you have any more things you want me to clarify, I'd love to clarify it. I'm not going anywhere. Anything already hitting us, or should I go into some of the composition tips while they think about it?
Yeah, there's Jack's iPhone. I don't know who that is. Says, yeah, where do I find the PDF? I sent a link to all of the people on the CACA list where to find the PDFs that he's talking about. So look at your email that I sent, and you'll find those links.
Yeah, he should have sent it out just last night. You could have seen it.
Yeah,
Let me show
it
you
went out.
guys.
It went out.
Oh, it did go up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
The
cool.
Here's a question. What's the maximum you should push your shutter speed?
Your shutter speed, well, the NPF rule +4 is a safe amount that you should go because it's going to keep you from trailing even a little bit. But in the situation, say maybe, let me go into a picture here while I talk about it. If you wanted to
What's
capture
MPF again?
NPF rule is on the Spot Stars part of the PhotoPills app. It's just a math that takes into account what megapixels your camera is, what your sensor size is, and it does math to help you understand whether or not a 24 millimeter or a 14 millimeter or a 50 millimeter, when's it going to trail. Like for instance, you're seeing right now a Nikon Z8 at 24 millimeter. If I change this millimeter to even a 50, it's going to give me a completely different number. It's like instead of 4 seconds, I've only got 2 seconds, and then it's going to start trailing. Now, technically, that's like hyperactive accurate. If you're printing it at 3,000, you're printing like maybe an 8,000 wide pixel mural on the wall, people will see trailing a little bit like oblong shaped stars. Maybe they might notice it. And if you tap on accurate, you can change it to default barely noticeable trails. And it basically does my rule of +4 seconds. So like the 24 millimeter said 4 seconds before, now it says 8 seconds. So if you just want to do NPF rule at accurate for whatever camera body you have to go in and say, here's my camera and here's my f-stop I'm shooting at, and here's my millimeter I'm shooting with. Then it'll tell you how many seconds you've got. The 500, 600 rule, they're right out. They're trash. Don't use them anymore. They just don't work for the new cameras. This is going to be a hyper like anal number though. It's like 4 seconds. Like I'm going to see nothing, which is why I got to push my ISO high. But you're like, if you're thinking, Aaron, I did my histogram. 8,000 is the max I want to go my ISO, and it's still a little bit short. I don't want to max my ISO up anymore. I want to cheat it a little bit with my shutter. Can I do that? I'll say yes, you can. Go from your 8 seconds of my recommended seconds to like 13 to 10 and just bring it out there. If you go over 15 seconds, was it Mike? I think it was Mike. If you go over 15 seconds, you'll see more of a problem where you start to hate it probably later on in life. But if it's under 15 seconds, it'll take the eagle-eyed pixel peeper jerk to see it and say, hey, there's trails. Oh, there's some trailing here. So you don't have to worry about it. 15 seconds and under is what I'd say for safe bets.
So, Aaron, are you saying that it would be the 3.97 there +4?
Yeah. And so I round this up to 4 seconds and then +4. So in this case, in a Nikon Z8 at 24 millimeter f2, I would do it at 8 seconds.
Okay.
Yep. And that just gives me this chance to have 8-second long shutter relieve me on the ISO side of my exposure so I don't have to worry about it and I'm not going to notice it. I mean, not to be braggy, but I'm thinking there's someone out there who probably liked this image. Let me go to one I like. This one. You probably liked it a lot. And I love it. But is it noticeable star trails? Well, not really. It's not perfect, but this is 8 seconds. This is not 4 seconds. This is 8 seconds capture. So if you can look at this in the center and be happy, or if you go to an image like this that has an edge, if you go to the edge and you can be like, well, I mean, I'm not disgusted by any of this. This is just low res artifacts now. It's not anything else. And you're not seeing the oblong stars, the problem stars that I showed in my other example of the bad coma. If you're not seeing crap like that, then don't worry.
Okay, so the next question is the one we were expecting. How do you do good panos?
How do you do panoramas? One cool thing is I have a video that'll give you a very in-depth tip on how to do good panoramas. And this is specifically about a fail-proof panorama methodology that I use. And it has a bonus method when you don't have the ability to turn on lights. So say you don't have any lights that you're going to turn on, like you're in a situation where photographers out there, other photographers are out next to you, and you turn your light on to check your panel head to see when it's like on this mark to that mark to this mark. You don't have to keep turning your light on. You can do it totally in the dark. And the way that it works is it uses the 3C3O method that helps you follow with a star and move it across the screen. So let me just tell you in short the best way to consider this. Panoramas. How to do panoramas. Get yourself an L bracket. First step, L bracket, because you want to attach that to your camera and move it to vertical without any effort at all. The other thing is on your tripod, here, I'll stand and move this up. On your tripod, you're going to want to make sure that it's not sitting like this and off of it or doing this. You want to have that vertical orientation nice and centered. You give me a red Solo cup and an L bracket, and I'll give you a perfect panorama. You don't need a special tripod. You just need something that will hold your camera vertically, and you're going to want a tripod ball head. This is a cheap one that a China company sent me on a tripod years ago that I had to use because my ball head met its demise at Mono Lake. I was out with Alan Wallace and I lost it. It fell off my tripod. I couldn't believe it. I've missed it for 3 years now. Okay, anyway, I'm using this chintzy tripod ball head, but it actually works great because it has the functionality of a rotating base. I can loosen this up and I can rotate here at the base, and I don't have to do anything special. That is going to make your panoramas so much easier because you don't have to do anything hard with a funky tripod. I don't even tighten it again. I put my camera in here in my L bracket and I tighten it up, and then I just go whoop, whoop, and that's it. I don't have to think about it anymore. And so when you're doing a panorama, man, and you're thinking, okay, how do I get this right? You're going to start over on the bookend of Roafuki. Roafuki is your starting. I always have them start on the core just because the clouds might come in. And if the clouds come in and block Cassiopeia, you're not going to be crying, but you will be crying if the core is blocked by clouds. So start over where the core is first so that you guaranteed get that part because panoramas take time to go across. Don't let the clouds ruin your day. So I start over there at the Roafuki with the Roafuki bookending. So you see this image on this screen. You got Antares here in the center. You're going to put Antares in the dead center and capture the picture. Then the third center, third off method is going to take Antares and move it to the right third and take a picture. Now the Milky Way core is centered when I have Antares on the right third. And then I take another picture and I move that Antares off. So third, centered, third, off. So I have it off. Now I have a new star, which is typically it's Altair. I can see it, but there's in this case I use this example of this star right here that was visible. And I captured this star in the third, then I brought it to the center, and then I kept Altair. I'm like, oh, here's Altair. I can see Altair. So now I can see Altair, and I say third on Altair, center on Altair, third on the right side Altair, and then I moved Altair off and I captured a picture. And there I have Deneb showing up in the center. So I let Deneb go to the far right. In this example, I kind of went a little far on Deneb to keep Cassiopeia on the third. But the goal of your panorama has three things. You're going to make sure you find where Vega is. Where's Vega? Vega is a star at the top of your sky, and that's going to be the high point of your pano. So when I have this camera set up like this, I'm going to go point it towards Vega, and I'm only going to tip it as far back as I need to get Vega just under the frame. When I got Vega just barely in frame or just barely off frame, but I know it's right there, then I'll tighten. So then the angle that my camera's at is based off of Vega. So there's my panorama overhead. That's the head room that I'm giving my pano is based off of Vega. And we can talk about where Vega is later if you guys want. But Vega, that star, once it's in frame, I know I'm good, then I can do my panorama. And at that angle is my whole panorama right and left. Man, this ball head is starting to get bad. I'm going to have to buy a new one because it's really kind of getting stuck. Well, anyway, this guy, loosening too. This guy's got Vega in view. I've nailed the first step. Vega's in view or it's just off. I got my headroom for my pano set. Then I checked right and left and go, okay, all the way over to my bookend of Antares, Roafuki. Got it in the center. Good. Looks good. Go all the way to the left. Okay, that's the right side. Go all the way to the left side now, and I got Cassiopeia, the W constellation of Cassiopeia. Now that's on there in the center. Good. Got it. And I check my ball head as I go back and forth. If I'm probably watching it and seeing it kind of go like a little swing down and a little swing up and a little swing down. Like that is kind of happening with my lens off on the end. But that movement's not a problem. It'll stitch every time in Lightroom still. If you have something really wonky like this, when you're off there, then you're going to have like this weird, like, okay, points all the way down, but then points all the way up. There's this weird switch. So you got to make sure that you keep yourself on your yaw, your right and left here, that you have it nice and vertical, straight. And then when you find Vega, you just come straight back as best you can. And now you still are pretty straight up that when you go right and left, it doesn't do this weird rotation. you're not doing anything really weird and it looks just like this, you're in great shape for your panel. So now you got your first thing, headroom done. Your second thing, you got your right and left Antares all the way to Cassiopeia figured out, and you check that you don't have any weird angle wrong on your yaw. So then the last thing is that when you capture, you give yourself an overlap. You don't skip an overlap. If you do too much of an overlap, it's fine. If you do no overlap, you got a problem. You missed something. You totally ruined your panorama. So you have to overlap. The recommendation is 10% overlap in a daytime shot and a 30% overlap in a nighttime shot. But when I do like this method, the third center, third off, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 images. And that's technically a 70% overlap. I mean, that is way overkill on my overlap, but it's fine. 2/3 of my image is overlapping, but I did it all in the dark, and it took me less than 2 minutes to capture all the images. And now I've gone through boom, 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 bam. So make sure you have an L bracket. Make sure you be vertical so the orientation is really perfect and you don't have any weird, issues with parallaxing because you're right in the dead center of your panorama, dead center of your tripod. And you can go right and left easily because you have a good panorama ball head that just has any ball head that goes right and left. And then you're good. And you use those 3 steps I talked about. Does that clarify for you, Carlos? Do you think that answers it pretty well?
Yeah, what's the 3C30 method? What does
That's
that mean?
the third center, third off. So imagine looking straight at you guys. I've got you centered, right? I look over to the right. You're over here on the third. Then you're centered. Then you're off on my right third. And then I look away from you where you go off the frame. So third, center, third, off. And I'll emphasize this here. Let me move my camera. So right here, Antares is in the center. Then the next picture, he's on the third right. Then Antares is entirely off the frame. Then I find another subject. This is at a third. I take that subject on the third, move it till it's in the center, and I take a picture. Now that it's in the center, I see Altair. I'm like, oh, Altair's perfect on the third already. It's a bright star. I can see without even anything, just live view. I can see Altair popping on there. I'm like, okay, it's at the third. I'm going to rotate my camera until Altair's in the center, take a picture. Now I'm going to rotate my camera until it's on the right third, take a picture. Then I'm going to rotate my camera until that star I saw goes off frame. And when it barely goes off, I'm going to stop and take a picture. Third, center, third, off. And that's just a quick way of doing panos in the dark, knowing that you're giving a definite overlap and you're not going to have any problems. You're going to be out like Aaron King that night. Let's just go back on this whole thing. Let me close this out, go to the very beginning where I'm standing there in the dark. I didn't even know my camera had a timer for my shutter. I could have done a 1-minute timer without touching it, and yet I had no idea about it at the time in 2019, and I stood there the entire time holding my camera and then watching my phone, counting a minute, holding the shutter down. And so I went through those frames in the dark. I saw the star, third, center, third, off, third, center, third, off, third, center, third, off, done. Moved it down, angled it down to the foreground, kept some stars in the top of my frame so I can watch them. Third, center, third, off, third, center, third, off, third, center, third, off, boom, done. Panel was done, 2 rows entirely in the dark.
Are there any other questions for Aaron?
Thanks everyone for hanging out with me so long. I know that you guys probably weren't planning on 2.5 hours, but thanks for hanging with
It's
me.
a lot of information. I will definitely put the recording on our website, which just missed the part where he's talking about himself, but you don't want to see about that.
Yeah, you don't need that part. The part that was important was the only part we got, so I'm happy about that too.
Right.
Only Willis Tower. I blame Willis Tower for the delay. I think I spent 20 minutes on Willis Tower. I'm sorry, guys. I get so hooked on the planet, showing you things and making it work, that when my fingers are working on the app, the time relativity just goes into ultra mode. You guys are experiencing a year, and I'm experiencing only a minute.
All right. Okay, guys. So, Aaron, thank you so much for a very informative program. We really appreciate it. We will. I will have that up in a couple days, and
Thank you, Jim.
we will look forward to seeing you guys again on one of our garden programs real soon.
And if you guys would like to have me back, since I did go through things on a quick, comprehensive way, but you want to put some more questions out because you've done it in practice in 2026, you have some real questions with some meat because now you've done it, or you want me to go into something more heavily, I'd love to do it. I'd love to be back.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, can I get away with just a? I got this weird vibration here.
I got some feedback.
Get away from the mic.
Oh, so I have a tripod head that's for macro photography, and it swivels and it has a tilt on it. Is there any reason why I can't use that?
Well, the
As
question would be like, does it let you rotate a full 180 degrees?
yes,
And would a camera stand vertically on it centered, or would it be hanging off the side and maybe hit legs?
it would be above the legs.
So it'd be above up here and it would just swivel and pivot. It wouldn't have any sort of knob or leg attachment
That
bump,
that
nothing. There's nothing for it to grind and touch and get stopped on.
I love how you think. Yeah, that would. I understand the problem already. It will not be a problem though. I understand what could be the problem, and yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I have found when people come to workshops and they bring these really nice, really right stuff. No, not really right stuff. It's Peak Design. I love Peak Design, but I hate the freaking Peak Design tripod. There's this one tripod that's great for travel and it folds up really well and it's so light. It's actually kind of heavy compared to my tripod, but it's lightish and it has a puck. A stupid puck at the top that is so dang annoying. And all it does is you loosen it and then you can move that puck all these different directions, but it doesn't do this. That direction, that twist is to tighten or loosen it. And it's like, so now you can't pano that way. You have to put it like this. And then they just, what do they even do? Usually I just kick it and throw it in the trash. I'm like, you stupid tripod. So some of these tripods, they run in and they bump into things. Like mine will hang out on my Manfrotto and then it'll hit the next leg when you go across like that. And that's where the L bracket really saves you. So if you have something that at least will let you swivel, and it has an L bracket Arca Swiss capable connection, or at least
yeah.
a bracket connection that you can adapt, then you are good. You're in really great shape.
And if I overlook something, could you just raise the tripod center pole just a little bit if there was a problem?
Yeah. Get some clearance on something that's in the center there. Like if you have
Yeah,
a center pole,
right.
flip that center column up, and now it's clearing any sort of like. Probably can't see it on the live stream, but I got a little knobby-ish here, right there on that.
Yeah, but remember that when you bring up the center pole, you're a little less stable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just on the leg.
But the good news, and everyone worries about this a lot in Milky photography, but it's not as bad as you think. If you got an 8-second shutter going and your camera's not too stable, as long as it's not wind is moving your tripod like in the middle of the exposure, it's not that big a deal, especially with the payload of just your camera and a lens. But if you start putting a tracker on there, and that payload really requires your tripod to be really stable. So as long as your tripod's not moving, despite being a little less stable on the center column up, you're probably not going to notice it, but just do some test shots, see how much it vibrates. If yours is particularly weak and vibrates more, then maybe you can't use your center column up.
I do have one more question too.
Yeah.
Because I was buying a tripod, and there's some, ChatGPT says, the aluminum legs transfer vibration. It's more noticeable.
That's where people get a little too anal, in my opinion. And maybe it's
Okay.
great. Like you mentioned macro photography, you're going to want your slicing of your macros to go really perfectly and not change from image 1 to image 40. You don't want to have any movement. So like you'll be grateful to have something that won't have any vibration, or if you kick it. But I've filmed I take a picture of the Milky Way in the waves of the ocean. And so it's like sand can be no more annoyingly moving on you than sand and water. And yet in between the shots, it moved, but then it was fine. And unless I was going to do a stack, I'm fine. An emerged pano that has moved a little bit between shots, there's no problem because it handles the alignment in the merging of the panorama. It expects it to be different. So the fact that it takes a little wiggle in between each frame doesn't matter at all. But if I was to stack a picture, then it would have to align them right. Or if I was to do a time lapse, I would notice the wiggle in a time lapse. But in your case of a panorama, everything is forgiving for it to move. And a single image you won't even notice as long as it doesn't move during the shot and cause like little swirls in your stars as it's drawing shapes as you're wiggling too much.
That makes so much sense. And yeah, and that actually reinforces what you're saying about having a third overlap, because your sand tripod water, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
That would anchor that so much better.
Exactly. And I've been abandoned in the beach with water where the waves were fine, and all of a sudden a big rogue wave came and got me, and it got my ankles wet. But my tripod shifts down because the sand came underneath, and then it settled even further in the sand. And it's like, oh crap. But when it came to the panorama stitch, there was no noticeable difference. It just all merged together. Where I crop on the edges has maybe a different outline, but that's easy.
All right, Aaron. Thank you again, man. That was really cool.
It's not midnight yet. Come on.
Man, you were the best astrophotographers I've ever heard. Unbelievable, man.
Well,
That is really amazing. Thank
well,
you for
thank
your.
you. I'm glad you got something out of that, even though I was fighting with Willis Tower and the darn green square. You actually got
It,
something out of it, Scott.
it,
Thank
We
you.
got a lot out of it. We got a lot.
it's Sears Towers. Thank you for everything, man. You're
You
awesome.
bet.
All
You
right,
bet. And check any videos you need.
everybody, thank you, and we'll see you on the next program.
Thank you guys. Get out there, have an
Thank you.
adventure of your own this year. Do it.
Thank you.
Will
Thank you.
See y'all.
go to Middle Fork River Preserve
And come to Utah for really clear skies.
in Utah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm
Later.
going to Bosque on Sunday, so I'll use it.
Oh, yes.
There's a
yes,
Wisconsin Dark Sky Park website that has some. I mean, that has like locations in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and
that are-
Door
that are
County is really
Bortle 2. Bortle 2.
Door County is really dark, and looking at anywhere in the UP Upper Peninsula is
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep.
So yeah, you got some close areas.
Yep. All right. Good night.
Night, guys.